it's Illuminati, the Home Alone, Golden Axe Illuminati. If I'm not here tomorrow, tell the world my story.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment of our show. This is Greg Ghost81 with episode 16 of the RFGen PlayCast for July 2015. This time around, we have a few very special guests joining Rich and Floyd in the retro discussion of the Golden Axe franchise, while over on the ever-popular modern side, I will be joined by Rich and Steven to discuss the infinite slaughter of those annoying greenskins in Warhammer 40k Space Marine. Now, a spoiler is something cool people put on the back of their hoopties to make them go faster. The word also refers to any specific plot point in an artwork that might be preferable to experience firsthand. In other words, spoiler alert. Now, if you could do me a couple small favors, I'm going to need you to subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter. Thanks. You can also listen to the show on Podomatic and iTunes. Most importantly, don't forget to log on to rfgeneration.com to join our playthroughs and discuss the awesome games we play together. Thank you as always for listening, and now, on with the PlayCast.
Hello and welcome to the July 2015 retro playthrough of Golden Axe 1 and 2, and of course some of us got to play 3 this go round. I'm your host Rich, and with me this month is Floyd, who is joining the retro side to take the place of Steven.
Yeah, I'm a turncoat.
Yeah. And also joining us is Steven, who we obviously cannot get rid of, so he's going to be joining us in this podcast as well, play some Golden Axe. Hey Steven.
Yeah, he didn't really take my place. He's just joining us again.
Oh, okay. Is that what it is? All right.
Works for me. That's fine.
All right. And this is actually a special episode because we've got two guests this time around. We actually have Fokaki79. We'll be calling him Nick in this show, and he was the one that was the winner of our PlayCast slot for the 2015 donation drive, and he chose Golden Axe this month for the playthrough, and he actually co-hosted the thread this month with me and joining us in the podcast today. So say hello, Nick.
Hey, great to be here.
All right. And finally, our last guest is someone who's actually not on RF Generation, but he does our music for our intros and outros, and a good friend of mine locally, and we did a little co-op Golden Axe together, Cameron Johnson of band Atmo Weapon.
How you guys doing?
Thanks for joining us, guys. And just want to kind of start off a little bit and just ask Nick. Nick, I know we were kind of going through these games and everything to decide what we were going to do for the month, and we kind of settled on Golden Axe 1 and 2. I can't remember what your other choices were. Maybe you can refresh my memory on that. But do you remember?
I really don't remember. I think there are ones that were like hard to play or like where they were just long. They took a long time to play. I really don't remember.
Yeah.
I could go back and look at messages, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah, forget it. Well, we've done the beat 'em up genre before. We did Streets of Rage, and we did it during December. We typically do like beat 'em ups in months where we can kind of just, we don't have a lot of time. Of course, around the holidays, you don't have a lot of time, and so it's sort of a one-sitter kind of laid-back kind of thing, but we decided, that Golden Axe might be kind of a nice little summer break from the heavier platformers or RPGs that we typically do throughout the year. So what made you pick Golden Axe? You have some sort of a history with that game, or had you ever played them before?
Yeah, actually, it was one of the first games I played for the Sega. It was at my friend's. I didn't even have a Sega until a lot later, but one of my friends, I was over at his house, and he had a Sega. And it was pretty much one of the first games I played for Sega, and I always had some weird appeal to it. Like, I like the colors and the set and the music. I know it's kind of odd sound we'll talk about later, but the music it always appealed to me. So.
Yeah. It really is a cool game, and we'll get into some of that as well as we go on, the graphics and everything. I'm kind of go around and kind of hear what everyone else's experience is with Golden Axe. How about you, Steven? Where are you at with Golden Axe? Do you have a history with this game?
Yeah, definitely. A friend of mine, he used to be my neighbor. He's 10 years older than I am. We're still friends, but he used to be my neighbor growing up. And I used to go to his house when I was really little, and we would play Golden Axe 1 and 2 together. So these games are like really nostalgic for me. I have they're vague memories, but memories of these games, playing them with him, and even 20, 25 years later, we still play these games together. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's cool. And Floyd, how about you? You're one of the younger guys typically on our podcast, and so I'm kind of interested to hear about what your experience is with this game.
Well, I was a Sega kid, but I never had Golden Axe. And so I played it for the first time on Steam as part of the Sega Mega Drive Classic Collection.
Yeah, okay. All right. And how about you, Cameron? What's your history with Golden Axe?
All right, so I got a somewhat of a longer response.
Oh, Lord.
No, that's okay. It's a good long response. So yeah, I guess in the arcade, I played the first time I think I ever played Golden Axe. The first one was I was at my dad would have these conferences at Disney World, Orlando. So I was in Orlando, and they had this sort of event for the kids of all the the parents or whatever who were there for the conference. So I remember being in this sort of, I guess, activity room, or one of those rooms downstairs, and then they brought in a Golden Axe cabinet, and it was a free play, of course. Sure. And then we all just took turns playing through it, and we must have played through it like 3 or 4 times, and that was the first time I think I played Golden Axe. And then I believe my cousin ended up getting it on the Sega Genesis, along with other cool stuff like Decap Attack, of course. And Sonic the Hedgehog, and I think he had the Genesis before, right when a lot of us had, a Nintendo. So playing the Genesis was kind of a big deal back then, and that kind of got me into the Genesis. This is maybe like 91-ish, I think. Okay. But yeah, so the Golden Axe has always been sort of like the classic, Genesis. It's like, a great port of the arcade, I feel, and like a lot of you guys are saying that there's a lot of nostalgia tied up in it, and it just has that sort of classic Genesis music. It's very iconic.
Yeah, absolutely. My history kind of typically is that as many people have probably heard, I lived in a community where there was a kind of a ghost town for the Genesis. No one really had a Genesis. Even in college, I didn't know people with a Genesis. And when I finally met people who collected and had them, it seemed that like one of the games that everyone always had out of the few, it seemed like people always had like Altered Beast, and then people always had Golden Axe. I didn't play the second one until probably about 6 years ago, but I'd played the first one quite a bit, and never finished it, of course, but it was just sort of a familiar type beat 'em up that it typically is that game that's in everyone's collection. If you're a Genesis collector, it's going to be one of the first games you buy, right? At least the first one, and so there's that. So well, before we get too far, I want to kind of do a list of the participants this month. We've got of course, the 5 of us played. We also had Akari Nuku played, Jerry Greenwood played, Metalfro played, Russ Lyman played, and I think he had a pretty good time with the game this year. He actually, and I want to send a quick thank you to him because my copy of Golden Axe didn't have the manual, and the guy he works at a store, and he just happened to have one lying around. He's like, anybody need this manual? I was like, yeah, I do. So he actually sent me the manual for free, so he completed my box copy of that. So that was really awesome.
Nice.
Thanks, Russ.
Very nice.
Can't wait to meet him when we go up to Connecticut. That's where his store's at, and I think he's actually going to have a table at the Retro World Expo as well. So that's pretty cool. And then Shaggy played with us as well. So thanks, guys, for participating. Before we get into the Golden Axe discussion, I had mentioned that Cameron is he's in a band called Atma Weapon, and Cameron actually does our intro. If you've listened to our show, he did our intro and outro music for the show. You know, one of the things we kind of got lucky with, you know, to have our own music was I'd met Cameron a good while ago at a retro store that he worked at, and just sort of fortunate enough to know him and just kind of be like, hey man, could you do something, you know, maybe for us for the show? And he's like, actually, I've got something laying around if you want to use it. So he was kind enough to let us use it for the show, and we really appreciate that. And in a moment of sort of giving back, I wanted to have him on the show at some point. And you know, Golden Axe was a good game for us to co-op because we don't live very far from each other. And I actually wanted to have him on. He's got a new album coming out soon, so I wanted to give him a shot and let him plug that.
Oh, sure. So yeah, our the intro music is actually that wasn't my band; it was just me. I'd actually done the music. If you guys know the Happy Console Gamer on YouTube? Do you guys follow?
Yeah, definitely know him.
Any of those people? Okay. Well, I just reached out to I guess Johnny several years ago, and you know, had an idea to make a song for him, and he was going to use it, and then I think he never ended up doing like an actual intro, so I just said whatever. But I did some music for his movie just kind of for fun. But anyway, so yeah, my band At Weapon, we're obviously, well, some of us are obviously gamers, but we have a new album out. It's sort of, I guess, progressive rock, I guess coming out rather, and we just finished, so we're thinking it should be out at the end of August. And if you're curious to check out some tunes, some sounds, if you go to Atma Weapon, that's ATMA WEAPONNC as in North Carolina .com. I'm sorry, at Weapon. Just take our Facebook page. Facebook page.
Or you can go to or you can go to bandcamp.com and type in Atma Weapon in the search field, and that'll take you to. You can actually listen to their entire first album on there, Dark Tower, and order the CD. You can get it digitally. I think it's $5. The CD. You've still got CDs, right, Cameron? $10.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, CDs $10. I appreciate that, Rich. I was trying to recount one of our numerous websites that I'm, you know. But yeah, anyway, so we got CDs $10. You can listen to the entire album. But yeah, just search for Atma Weapon, and then you should find either on Yahoo, Google, or Bandcamp or Facebook, and you should find our band. If hopefully you'll like what you hear, and as always, Rich, thanks for having me on the show. I've been looking forward to it, and when he said the Genesis, and I was all excited because it's a special place in my heart for the Genesis.
Yeah. And they've got some pretty cool T-shirts too. If you're a big Final Fantasy VI fan, it's got this really cool Atma Weapon beast, and the shirt says Atma Weapon. So you can if you don't even support the band, you can have like a cool video gaming shirt. So
that's true. If you hate our band, you can at least support these somewhat copywritten image that was redrawn for our band. So you know. I figured that they wouldn't, you know, they probably wouldn't get too mad. But
that's cool. All right, guys. So. Well, let's go ahead and start talking about the Golden Axe. I guess we'll start with the first game on the Sega Genesis, just entitled Golden Axe, and just to kind of give a brief summary of that game. I'll let Nick give us sort of a brief summary of sort of the story for that game and the characters and such.
All right, sure. Before I go on, I remember the two games I chose other than Golden Axe were the Shenmue and Castlevania.
Oh yeah,
that was I looked it up.
Shenmue, yeah, a lot of people have been clamoring for that game, and I think we're gonna have to do it. I'm hoping with the new Kickstarter for Shenmue 3 that it's gonna be released on more of the downloadable consoles, and so. if we can do that. I just hate that it's only on Dreamcast right now. It would make a tough play, but I think probably enough people own it. We could maybe justify it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm still holding out hope for that HD collection. Hopefully we'll get one.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's going to happen sooner or later.
Yeah, sure. Why not? I mean, if they don't do it, it's kind of stupid, right? I mean, here, throw your money at me, right? So,
Well, it is Sega, so.
well, there it is. Therein lies the rub. All right,
All right, I'll get going on Go Next. So basically, the story. I'll start with the story. So basically, it's about this land called Uria. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yep, sounds good to me.
Urea?
Yeah,
Be careful with that one.
The way maybe it may be Uria, like ease instead of wise.
Yeah. So yeah, it's about this land is invaded by a guy named Death Adder. He's killing a bunch of people in the land, and what is it? Oh yeah, he kidnaps the king and his daughter, and
Yep.
and he gets the golden axe, which is like this magical weapon. I assume.
Sure.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then the three warriors, which are Gilius, right? Gilius.
Yep. Gilius Thunderhead.
Let's see, and you've got Tyrus Flare, and you got Axe Battler.
Axe Battler. Yeah.
Conan type here.
Right. And the plot's not deep.
No.
It's sort of a revenge plot. And if I remember correctly, Gilius Thunderhead's brother is killed by Death Adder, Axe Battler's family, and then Tyrus Flare's parents are killed by Death Adder. So
that's about what it is. Yeah, it's just like, and then you're going through the land, wreaking vengeance.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's
That's pretty much it. Yeah. A very, very simple, very short and sweet plot. Nothing too deep about it, and you're just there to kick butt and take initials because you're not slowing down to get full names.
right.
So,
I guess it's slightly deeper than Double Dragon, right? Where it's just like girlfriend is hit in the face and is stolen, and now you have to get it back.
I'm going
right?
to correct you on that. She's hit in the stomach.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
And you lose your baby, and that's why you're mad. I totally
okay,
just
take it
made
back.
that up.
I was like, oh my gosh. I'm even mad now.
So let's talk a little bit about the gameplay. I mean, this is sort of your typical hack and slash gameplay, but it does have a few, rather cool elements. If anybody wants to discuss that, there is sort of, you can hit people with your sword or your axe, and at some point you can do some grabs and throws and things of that nature. You can do like Cameron and I did and keep hitting each other, which is one of the annoying things about this game, is that when in two-player mode you can hit each other.
Yeah.
So
Is that both? Is that the same for both of them? I didn't do.
yes,
It's the same with
yes,
both,
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first thing we tried out actually.
Just made sure. It's like, am I going to hit you with
That's
my
important.
axe?
You need to know that.
No game A and game B.
I think. I wonder if does the third one have that? I think the third one has the friendly. You can hit each other too.
I think so.
So you really, it's the most realistic of the Genesis beat 'em up
Sure.
franchises.
For sure it is. So what do you guys think about the gameplay? I'm interested to hear, Floyd, what your kind of thoughts are on the gameplay. I mean, it is sort of simple in a way, I guess.
It's simple, and I think that's probably why people love it so much.
Sure.
I played it on Steam, so I had to play with a keyboard. Probably not the best way to play this.
That's sacrilegious, man.
That was. Yeah. Anyway, so it was the arrow buttons to move, and then ASD for your attacks. And it's like you said, it's really straightforward. And it's just like a fun, simple beat 'em up hack and slash.
Sure. And there is something sort of endearing about that, right? I mean, it's the kind of game that anybody can just kind of pick up. It's like jump, weapon, magic. I mean, there's nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing like. I guess
There's no
complicated.
big learning curve or anything like that.
No, but for all intents and purposes too, there are some sort of special things you can do, and you can learn how to do that stuff if you do something called reading the manual.
Yeah.
Which I didn't have, and which a lot of us didn't do.
I don't think I ever did. Like, I played through it this time, and I was like, wow, I never did this when I was a kid. I never did the charge move. I actually didn't know about the thrust, or I mean, not thrust, but like the downward thrust.
Oh yeah, the running jump and the
idea
tag
about
kind of
that
thing.
move. I was like, oh, okay.
I had no idea about the jump and attack at the same time. I mean, I had no idea. I was like, oh, these guys keep coming up behind me and kind of pillaging me, and so I don't know. It brought a whole new light to the game when I was able to figure out some of those things, and it actually enabled me to finally finish the game, learning those sort of techniques. And I think you have to be able to sort of master that in order to, get far in the game. What do you think, Steven?
Yeah, I mean, like we were saying, it's just short, or it's simple and but really good gameplay. It's not the simplest game. You do have some techniques you kind of have to learn, like you talked about the back attack and the downward thrust and all those things. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I always felt like the gameplay, at least in the first two Golden Axe games, was very distinctive feeling. Mm-hmm. Like, when you're attacking an enemy, you sort of get kind of locked into that little combo thing.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, and you do that in some other games too, but in this game, it feels a lot different. There's like a lot more like maybe like weight behind it, I guess. Where you just kind of like take the hilt of the sword and bash it over the enemy's head. It's almost like you can actually kind of feel it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of satisfying.
Yeah,
when you get those
it really
combos.
is. And I don't know, just playing this game, it has that really distinctive feel to it. It's like, I know I'm playing Golden Axe. I'm not going to mistake it for another game.
Right. Unless I'm playing Golden Axe 3.
Right.
Which is a completely different game, and of course we'll get into that. But but anyway, yeah. I mean, I completely agree. With how the gameplay works, and kind of what you're saying, like keeping it simple and that sort of thing. And one of the other ways to sort of make it further in the game is to use things to your advantage, such as like pits and terrain and things of that nature, which I think is very essential. And a lot of early games especially have a lot of memorization sort of involved in those games, and I think Golden Axe is very similar in that sense. You have to know what's kind of coming up. I know Cameron and I were co-oping, and we're like, okay, this part's going to have like two skeletons that are going to come up out of the ground. You take the one, to the left and the top, and I'll take the one in the bottom right, or, whatever. I mean, you kind of know these things, and you can sort of use, like I said, terrain to your advantage, like especially the ledges. I mean, I totally use those to my advantage.
Yeah, I agree. I use, like, I would just stand on the bottom and have them be on the top of the ledge and just like hit them and jump up and hit, and they would, just. So definitely the terrain is like key. You gotta understand how that stuff works and how you can use it.
Yeah,
the terrain, it plays more of a factor in this game than a lot of other games.
Sure. And I didn't know this, but there's like a there's sort of like a the way the game's balanced. There's sort of like a hit point system where all the different enemies have a certain number of hit points, and and this is something I sort of mentioned on the forums, was that you kind of get locked in when you're attacking. Sometimes we're like, okay, I'm hitting this guy. I need to hit him 4 times to knock him down. I'm going to keep attacking until I knock him down. You get locked into that. Well, you've got a guy sneaking up behind you who's going to hit you and keep you from knocking that guy down. So one technique that you can use that you wouldn't think about using, you would think, okay, I've got to knock this guy down to actually take off his hit points. Well, that's not true. I mean, you can hit him 2 or 3 times, and when the guy comes behind you, you can walk away, and then when you go back to attack him, he's already lost that set amount of points. You didn't have to knock him to the ground. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you had to knock,
because
you had to knock him down.
No.
That's what I thought too.
No, because when you think about it, like when you're swinging, and like if you're using like the terrain and you're below the step, and you know how you can swing at their legs and keep hitting them, and they never fall down, but you can just keep hitting them over and over again until finally they fall over. I think more like with your weapon, you do a certain amount of damage, and when you throw them or you knock them down, you do more damage. But you can still do like an accumulation of damage on those enemies.
Well, one thing I noticed too, and I didn't really think about it when I was playing, is if you hit, you get kind of like you're saying, locked in that sort of like combo, and they're sort of taking damage. If you slow it down, you can it kind of resets it. So it's like you can hit him twice, kind of pause for a second, hit him twice again, and then sort of rinse and repeat, and eventually he'll just fall down. They'll just fall down and die for the final time. So that's one thing I think, because I noticed that if you're fighting somebody and like Rich was saying, like, well, say you're just alone with them, each time they get up, it's a chance of them to kind of get you. So I feel like to play it safe, you could just hit them and then kind of do it slower. It doesn't get into that sort of automatic knockdown thing, and then they'll eventually die. So that might be a good strategy against a single person.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, and it kind of goes along with what I was saying about that sort of accumulation of, taking off so much. It takes you longer, of course, to do it, but, in certain parts of the game, it can be, very helpful and keep you from taking damage, which is sort of the ultimate goal. And one of the things that I really liked about the game, I really love the charge, like the shoulder charge. Oh, yeah. I think Gilius does the kind of the horn charge, and then let's see, Axe Battler does like kind of a shoulder charge, and then the girl doesn't she does a kick? Is that right?
Yeah, on the first one, I don't know if she does. Because I don't use her for the second one.
She does do the kick in the second game as well.
Yeah. So that was one of those things when I learned how to do it. It was pretty awesome. Like you could just like charge into people, especially the big bosses. Yeah. If you could get them separated on two sides of the screen and run and charge one, knock them down, run and charge the other, and just keep going back and forth. I mean, it was a way you could save a ton of energy that way.
Really good strategy.
Yeah.
Because we all chose the elf, right? Or not the elf. We all chose the dwarf. Yeah, I chose correct. And that's of course, because he has the axe. That's like when we were kids, and we were always fighting for who gets the dwarf. So of course when Rich and I played, I chose the dwarf. Although I let him choose. Man. Just you want to be Axe Battler.
Yeah, Axe Battler was probably the next best. I know that it's one thing we should probably say about the characters too. All the characters have magic that they can use, and the way the game's set up as well is that each character has like a different strength, right? The girl is the most powerful magic user, but she's the weakest attacker. And then Gilius is the am I right about this?
I think he's the fastest.
Gilius, the weakest music, but the weakest magic.
He's a terrible musician, but his magic is great.
He doesn't play his axe very well.
Yeah. I think it's like an inverse relationship, so like you're saying. So if somebody has the best magic, they have the weakest attacks, and vice versa. Is that,
and then the barbarians just sort of balance, right?
Right, sort of middle of the road.
Yeah, I think that's the way it works. So that's a kind of a cool concept with the game. I mean, I think as simple as the game is, and as simple as it feels, there's something you can kind of pick up. I think that the developers did a great job, and with as far as what we were talking about with controls and button input, and then also thinking things out a lot, like the magic. I mean, instead of making all the characters, similar, they all have different attributes, which is really nice, and sort of one of the legacies of Golden Axe. So, all right. Well, how about the level design in the Golden Axe, the original Golden Axe? What did we kind of think about that, Steven? You want to tell us about your thoughts on that, sort of what you thought about?
Yeah, I think the levels are the best and most interesting in the first game. I mean, you have levels where you're on the back of giant turtles and eagles and all these other things, and there's a lot of nicely placed ledges and pits you can knock enemies into, and to me the environments in the first game are just they stand out the most and seem the most interesting compared to the other games.
Yeah, and graphically, man, I remember the first time seeing that eagle head. I think I missed the turtle a few times, seeing that turtle's head. I kind of missed that because it's sort of small, but that eagle's head's really pronounced. But graphically, man, that's really beautiful. And they did such a great job with that.
still appealing to this day.
Sure.
You know? You can still appreciate the artwork and like you're saying, the level design is, I've played the game a million times, but I still can enjoy it.
Sure.
You know, and I think I agree with you guys though. Like the second game, I mean, you could. I don't want to get too into it too early, but
That's okay.
you can choose your paths, right? In the second game, or
No,
is that
it's the third.
game? Okay. Well, the second game just seems like more of the same, but except for I believe that like I think the first game did a lot of really cool things with the levels, and the pits are my favorite part. You know, just kicking and or headbutting the enemies off is extremely satisfying.
Yeah.
So they did a great job.
Yeah, and when you figure out on that last board that you can shoulder charge over that pit instead of trying to jump that pit.
Oh yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
that makes it so easy. You just never think of that. I think Cameron and I were playing it, and I think first time we played, man, I think I fell in that pit like 7 times.
Yeah.
And then I think I accidentally pushed some buttons and shoulder charged over the pit when I was playing by myself, and I was like, oh wow, I could have been doing this the entire time.
So that's how you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh well.
Did he? Yeah. I can only imagine like what charging was like playing on the computer, Floyd.
Not too fun. It's definitely the worst way to play the game. I mean, like I still had fun with it. And like, cause like your ASD is lined up pretty much the same way as like a Sega controller.
Yeah.
But, just like that tactile aspect of a keyboard is nowhere near like a traditional
Sure.
game controller.
Yeah. Your A button no longer functions.
Yeah.
Pressing it so much. Well, Flo, I've got you on. I mean, how about what do you think about the sounds in the game as far as like the music and sort of, just the sound?
Like it really brought me back to like the sounds of an arcade.
Yeah.
And I guess that's because of the Genesis's sound chip. Like it just sounds really arcadey and like really gritty.
Yeah.
The whole time I was playing that, I thought like, man, this sounds like a pinball machine.
Yeah, I know. Like, I think someone on our forums, it might have been Jerry, was saying, it's not the most impressive sound, and music on the system. Which I mean, I can agree with that because there's a lot of Genesis games as I'm sort of really getting into the Genesis now, and just listening to the music on some of these games, it's really amazing. And I wouldn't rank it up there as like, the pinnacle of great music on the Genesis, but at the same time, and I think we've talked about this, it's so iconic. I mean, when you hear Golden Axe, you can just hear that and it's Golden Axe. It's one of those things that sort of reverberates, through your past, and it's very, very iconic. And for that reason, I think it's pretty great because it kind of, I've played a lot of games growing up, but that's one that I always, and I know exactly what it is when I hear it, and I'm not really keen on that. I don't really have a good memory when it comes to music for video games, but that's one that kind of always kind of pops in my head, like that and Altered Beast, on the
Right.
Genesis are two of the more iconic for that matter.
Yeah. Especially,
Well, I guess like
especially
the
Go ahead.
no, oh yeah, wasn't it the Super Nintendo had better sound quality, but I think a lot of music on Genesis games just sounded really like, I don't know, like really rock and roll or really heavy metal.
Yeah.
It was just more raw, and it
Exactly.
had,
It was like
it was
kind of
kinda
crunchy
like
and gritty.
Yeah, I think they were doing a lot more with a lot less, I feel like, versus the Super Nintendo. I mean, they had some amazing music on that, but no matter what, it would sound pretty good, whereas I think the rawness of the Genesis, kind of like in between the Super Nintendo and the Nintendo, it had that sort of transition, that kind of like
That's a good way to describe it.
Yeah, it's like a really polished Nintendo with very, I mean, there's like the sort of like the bass in a Genesis game, like it's like I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. It's like this very particular like synthy like, kind of like really percussive noise it does. I mean, and a lot of games will sound the same, or they'll have a lot of the same sort of tones, where I think it's sort of unique amongst all video games consoles, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. It's sort of that sort of bridge, in between, and a better sound quality, maybe than, sort of upgrade from the Nintendo. But, let's face it, I mean, there's a lot of sounds on the Nintendo that are fantastic and memorable, certain soundtracks. We talked about Mega Man 2, in our last podcast, of course, Zelda, a lot of, other games that are super iconic and have great soundtracks. But yeah, I totally agree. Just a really cool sound, and soundtrack. And I even like the kind of the sounds of the games too, like the when the enemies die, it's kind of great.
Yeah, I got a kick out of that.
Oh yeah,
and it's even more pronounced, if I recall, in the arcade version.
Yeah. I'm assuming they probably just took that and digitized it and sort of like it's dumbed down just a little bit, but but it's a lot. It's kind of amazing. I mean, there's a lot of games out there that the arcade is just significantly better than the console, and but I think Golden Axe is an exception because it's just like, graphics aren't as good, sound's not as good, but it's absolutely playable.
Sure.
Where a lot of games will just fall short. It kind of reminds me of, I guess Turtles in Time is a good example of another one they got right for the Super Nintendo. Sure. Classic game and a great arcade game, and same thing with the Golden Axe for the Genesis. They got it right.
Sure.
They did what they had to do to make it playable, and they just did a great job.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a spot on port, and it's never going to be. I mean, it's the funny thing about like growing up and having these consoles is that you always had something better in the arcade. Right. And that's not so much the case anymore. In the modern world, in the modern arcade, you're going to have nicer stuff at home than you can have, outside of the home in the arcade. And so, kind of growing up and getting ports of things, I think for myself and growing up in that age, I always felt I wasn't such a harsh judge on certain things. But don't get me wrong, there were some horrible ports, that we got. But even so, like even stuff like Rolling Thunder was fairly close. I mean, it was as close as it could get from the Nintendo. It was a little bit of a disappointment. I was a big fan of that, but for Golden Axe, I mean, I think it's fairly spot on. It's so close that, and that's what makes it so amazing.
Yeah. Well, I think the important thing in that case, I mean, you're never going to have like an exact, it's not going to be like the same game, especially back in those days. But I think just the fact that the playability is there sort of makes any sort of little thing like graphical things and sound and all those little sort of aesthetic things a lot less important, just because you can play it and it works essentially. So,
all right, well, let's move on and talk a little about the length of the game. What do you think, Steven? Too long? Too short?
No, it's about right. It's it's not too long. Like I think Golden Axe 3 ran on kind of long.
Yeah.
But it's kind of your typical beat 'em up length. Maybe just I don't know. I didn't really time it. Maybe about half hour or so, if even that long.
Right.
One thing I think is worth pointing out is the Genesis version, the console port, is actually longer than the arcade version.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah. In the arcade, the game ends when you kill Death Adder.
Oh.
Okay.
So you don't have that extra level with all the pits, and then you don't have to fight Deathbringer.
Oh, okay.
So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Interesting. So a little bit of an add-on, so a little bonus there to be playing the home console version, which is pretty cool.
Well, if you consider that really cheap boss fight a bonus, then
oh my god, yeah.
Well, let's talk about that boss fight. That's a good point. Let's talk about that final boss fight. Did everyone make it to the last boss? Anyone beat the game?
I beat it first one. I barely beat it. Like it was one of those things where it's like he hit me and I hit him. It was like,
me too.
Yeah, it was. He started getting real cheap with that magic.
Oh, that's awful. When he brings you to the ground, I mean, he automatically starts casting, and you can't get up, you can't dodge it. It stings.
And you can't even kill the skeletons, so they're in the way all the time.
Yeah. So I'm going to take a minute. As I mentioned, Cameron and I co-op this game, and we were unable to beat it together. But
Right.
I was able to beat it without him, which goes to show how horrible of a gamer he is.
that reflects very poorly on my game skills. I just kept knocking off the cliff.
So is it harder with two people?
By accident?
Would you say it's like Contra, where it's harder with two people?
I think I think it's harder with two people as far as like the screen doesn't like for instance with the with the pit that I was talking about that you could like super run and just kind of shoulder charge over that pit. It's hard to do that with two people because the screen does not move with you. So usually one person will end up eating it the first time to make the screen push over enough so that you both can shoulder charge over it. So there are points of that. There are times where we, of course, would hit each other, and of course, it's just funny as crap when we do it. But at the same time, we're taking off, energy that we could have used. And I think another thing is you get a little confused about whose enemy is whose, right, Cameron? Didn't you feel that way, kind of?
Yeah. It was in a certain place it was kind of hard to be real strategic when you're playing with two players and not just kind of randomly hit people. But also I think sometimes you have to be careful. You'll end up like we're saying, kind of get in that combo mode. You could be hitting somebody if you hit the directional pad, or hitting an enemy. I could accidentally hit the directional pad and start hitting Rich, and then I'm stuck in that combo, and then all of a sudden people were hitting me, and you got to really be careful. And then not get in between enemies, as I guess it's kind of common sense. But it was I think it was in a way more difficult in times because we have to kind of keep up with each other, and with how Rich was saying with the screen, how it scrolls, and I'm not sure if the game upped the difficulty per se. I mean, I'm sure it probably did. I imagine there were more enemies. Do you think? In the two?
I don't know. I don't really think so. I think, and from what I understand, like every person has a certain amount of hit points. And one of the things that we had talked about to kind of bring it back to that final fight, that final battle is, I think I had mentioned on the forums that you can't kill those skeletons. I looked it up and you can, but they have like 270 something like HP. It's ridiculous. So it doesn't make any sense to do it. And one of the things Cameron and I did was I was like, okay, you take care of the skeletons, I'll take care of Deathbringer, and we tried to divide it up like that, which was kind of hard because if one kind of backed into me or got closer to me, it would attack me. And we tried that strategy, and it just it wasn't working out for us. So I finally beat it because I had sort of gotten to a point where I could sort of, again, master the techniques in the game, got to the end with a lot of life and a lot of continues left, and I would just do like the jumping axe swing and just try to just keep like just kept doing that. I mean, because it's too hard, really too hard to do anything else while those skeletons are like swarming you.
Well, I'm kind of curious now that you mentioned. Did anybody beat the game? Who of you guys who said you beat the game? What character did you use to beat the game?
That's a good question.
I used Gilius.
Okay.
Yeah,
I used.
Did everybody use Gilius?
No, I used Tyrus actually.
Huh.
Yep.
I didn't beat the game, but I'm gonna blame that on my platform.
Yeah, I think that's safe to say.
Yeah, but no, I was Axe Battler most of the time.
Okay, Axe Battler. That's a great name.
Best name.
I think he has his own Game Gear game, I believe, and it's a really crappy Zelda 2 clone,
I believe you're right.
Essentially.
I believe you're right. I remember that game. I think I sold it to Krabby when he opened his store in Canada. I sold him all my Game Gear stuff. So
it's probably the right decision.
Probably. I think I had about 3 Game Gears too.
I just sold all my Game Gear stuff also. So,
do you guys know if Axe Battler is also on the Master System?
Aren't there 2 versions? Aren't there? Isn't Golden Axe on there, and then there's another Golden Warrior.
Yeah.
That's for the I think there's one for the Saturn, right, where it's like a fighting game. Is that Golden Axe Warrior, or is that a? That's I see. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, Golden Axe Warrior is like a Zelda clone, pretty much.
Oh,
Okay.
Speaking of duel, did anyone play duel mode? Was that on the first game? I know it was on the second and the third.
Yes, it's in the first game.
I played a little bit. It was just like okay, this is just hitting a bunch of enemies over and over. It gets kind of boring.
Oh yeah, Yeah, it was boring. I mean, because you've got to beat them up, and then you're turning it into a fighter, which is sort of...
It's like survival.
Yeah, kind of...
Just...
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, kind of lame.
I have a question. So hit detection. Do the different characters
Sure.
have different hit detection? Have you sensed that? Or I didn't really sense it, but I was just wondering.
I don't know. I mean, the only thing that I really noticed is that I felt like the hit detection was a little better in the second game than what it was in the first. But once I got used to the hit detection in the first game, it wasn't bad. I mean, it just... I think it's one of those things you just kind of get used to, as you're playing the game. And I never got used to it in the third game, so... But I mean, that could be from not playing it enough,
Right.
So I could chalk that up to maybe that. So.
Well, plus we never played it on the console too, so you never really know. I felt like we were at a disadvantage just from I mean, I'll take a Genesis controller over a PS3 or 3 controller any old day, but then again I'm just a Genesis guy, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a good point, too. I mean, I think we'd mentioned that. I think we maybe were talking about that before we started recording. We were talking about how I think all of us ended up playing it on a certain collection. Is that right? All of us played the third one. None of us played on the original hardware.
Yeah, I never played the third one, but that was probably the only way I could never play it.
Yeah. So we got some life lessons on the third one. I'll go ahead and talk about that. So it'll be of interest to some people listening to this podcast. So I have the Japanese cart, and apparently I tried to play it and it's locked out. So we couldn't play it on my Genesis console. Apparently there were some earlier Genesis that did not have the lockout chip, but from what I understand from other people, the Golden Axe 3 cart actually has a lockout chip in it, so it wouldn't even help. But if you're interested in playing it on your Genesis, you can just Google and you have a Game Genie. You can actually Google it. There's 2 codes where you can actually play it through your Game Genie on your console. So good to know. A little information to pass on. Life lesson.
Do you think the Genesis Game Genies are they either really really cheap or pricey? I wonder.
They're cheap
for that reason.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Even most of your converters are very cheap. I think my Honeybee was like $10 or something. It wasn't.
The only one that's really expensive is the actual replay for the Sabbath.
Yeah, that's why I asked, because I know that's
It's going and up. Even so, it's not. I mean, it's not like ridiculous pricey. It's not
for now.
Well,
for
until
now,
everybody starts collecting on that system, right?
It's coming up.
All right. So, unless anyone has anything else they'd like to add about the first Golden Axe, we'll kind of move on to Golden Axe 2.
So we didn't really talk about the Beast, but we could go into that.
Oh.
Compare. I believe they're called the Bizarrians.
The Bizarrians, that's right. No, we should talk about the Bizarrians. That's a good point. So how do we feel about the Bizarrians? Now, what were in this game? They were the blue and the red dragons. And there were the things called the chicken legs. That's their actual name.
That's their actual name. That's what I always called them chicken beasts, but I never knew their real name.
Yeah, they're called chicken legs.
Real quick, there's something I noticed. I want to say that those chicken leg guys were from Altered Beast too. They looked very familiar to like the
they
the
are
enemies in the second level with the smoke.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes. And let me point this out. Why you said that and kind of tie it together. This game was made in 1989, and it was developed by Makoto Uchida, who actually designed Altered Beast. So there you go.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Look at that. It just comes together.
Beautiful.
So how do we feel about the Beast? I mean, useful, not useful? Did anybody, try to use them when they could?
I did.
Okay.
Like whenever I had the chance to use one of the beasts, I tried to, and I found like it gave you a little bit of an edge, and like whenever I encountered enemies that somebody was riding, like the chicken leg or one of the dragons, I'd try to dismount them first and take over.
Yeah. I think you get yourself in a situation sometimes where you would hit them and knock them so far away when you would do that on each side that you would ultimately get shoulder charged by enemies which made it kind of tough to stay on them sometimes, unless you could kind of
It was
time
tricky
the
sometimes,
attack.
yeah.
Unless you could time the attack right. I didn't use the beasts a lot, but one thing I did use them for, and this is going to sound kind of nuts, but I would exploit them. And what I mean by that is I would let them stay in like mount mode, and then I would stand beside them because your enemies would always try to mount. I mean, the AI makes them mount. So what I would do is I would just like, as soon as they got close, I would just hit them. You know, because
So like they're programmed to
you're right.
to go over to the beast,
Yeah.
and then you just
Yeah. So
that's
it was,
a really good idea.
yeah, so it was sort of like a little exploit thing that I used, you know, again, just to, you know, conserve energy and, you know, make it further in the game. Yeah, it's kind of silly, but that's how they're sort of wired to do that. You know, they won't even
Well, no,
attack
like
you. They'll walk right past you to go try to mount that beast. It's
Right.
strange.
Huh. I guess I never really noticed that while I was playing.
Yeah.
I did notice that sometimes the enemies are kind of dumb, and you can lure them off ledges and stuff, and they'll fall to their death.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Especially in the first game. It doesn't. I didn't notice it in the third. You could do it a few times in the second, but it was much easier.
Yeah,
to do
not
in
so
the
much in the
first.
second.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you, Steven? Did you use the old mounts, the old Bazarians?
I usually would try to use them, and I found that there are certain situations where it's better to use them. Like, I think if you can kind of keep your enemies on one side of you, typically it works out much better. But if you get surrounded, then it's very hard to keep them away and not get knocked off of your mount. Also, one thing I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that when you're on the mount, if you get hit, it doesn't actually deduct from your HP. Like the mount sort of takes the hit for you.
Oh, okay.
So it can kind of give you an advantage in that way, and that even if you do get knocked off of it immediately, you're not really penalized for it
Oh, wow.
by taking damage.
That's good to know.
Interesting.
Huh. Okay. One of the bigger disappointments to me is one of the best mounts in the game, the Red Dragon, is only available one time.
Once.
And it's right at the end of the level, and you can't carry over with your beast into the next level. I never remembered that in playing Golden Axe on the Genesis, but I felt like in the arcade, maybe there was a little more use of the Red Dragon for whatever reason. I felt that way. I could be wrong about that, but maybe it's just a poor memory I have. But anyway,
That's probably likely.
So, yeah. Well, I'm getting old. You know.
Just kidding.
So was that in the Dragon's Throat section, or?
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I just can't recall. But yeah.
I think that was that one was the one that it was the one that shoots the fire,
right.
As opposed to
spray.
So
Yeah.
right, and so that was I'm not sure what level that was in, but I know that was the like Rich said, the one and only time, maybe the last time you get to get to any sort of mount at that point. You know, it's kind of like the
Yeah, it's the only time it shows up. It's in the village.
Yeah, I think it's like the second level.
Yeah.
Before you fight the two women.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to Golden Axe 2, and I'll let Nick kind of open that up for us again and tell us a little bit about Golden Axe 2.
All right. Well, I mean, it's, the story is it's dark gold. Is that how you say it? So
Gould or gold? Yeah. I don't know.
Gold.
Yeah.
So now you're basically just fighting this guy who has the golden axe, and it's not really a revenge story, is it?
Not
It's just
really.
like
I don't think so.
You're just trying to get rid of this guy now.
Right. He's kind of taken over. His clan's kind of taken over, and you're trying to get rid of them. Apparently, this axe has like some sort of magical powers, and I think I even read that it increases longevity. Like I think that's how they explain, you know, how the heroes sort of are able to make it to the next one. And that's one thing we should point out about this game. You have the same 3 heroes in this game as you did in the first game, which is kind of cool, you know. Yeah.
Let's see. Do you want to go into differences, or do we want to just what else you want to?
No, I mean that's fine. We can go right into differences. Sure.
real quick. I want to point something real quick out that actually the the first Golden Axe is a port, right, of the arcade
Yep,
game.
I know what you're gonna say.
Exactly. A second Golden Axe arcade game, which is the Revenge, I think, of
That's
Death
right.
Adder, and then the Genesis game are totally different. So I think
Absolutely
that's
different.
interesting how they went that route. As opposed to just porting.
Have
over.
any of you guys? I know Cameron and I have. Our local arcade had a cabinet of Revenge of Death Adder, which was so sweet. But have any of you other guys played this Revenge of Death Adder?
No, I've never seen it. Or
No.
heard of it. I always knew Golden Axe 2 was just the direct Genesis game. But I never knew there was another Golden Axe arcade game.
Seek it out. It is amazing, is it not, Cameron?
Yeah, the only thing I didn't like about it is like the last boss fight was extreme. It was just like, okay, how many quarters can we take from you?
Oh,
I felt like
that was pretty normal though in the arcades back then. I mean, all of those, even Turtles, and X-Men, all those games are like that. Just quarter suckers. But yeah, it's for you guys that don't know about it, all the characters are different. I mean, I think there's an elf with a trident. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I think they're at least there's either 3 or 5 characters in the second one.
Yeah.
So, a centaur type.
Yes, there's a centaur guy.
Yeah. I haven't played that game. I've seen some YouTube gameplay, but I've heard it's really good. Check it out.
Check it out. Most people say it's the best. It's the best game in the series. A lot of people say that. There's these praying mantis mounts. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, that is pretty awesome.
It's a pretty cool game. But anyway, I mean, we'll kind of get back to Golden Axe 2. But yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out, Cameron. I had that on my list. I was going to cover that. I appreciate that. All right. So the differences, Nick, you mentioned that.
Let's see. I mean, I guess one of the differences that's pretty interesting to me is like the switch between the little gnome characters that you hit to get your magic or food.
Yeah.
And this time it's
the interlude.
wizards. This time it's like these wizards.
Sure. Yeah. And they can actually attack you, can't they?
Yeah, there's a few of them in the game that are enemies, actual enemies.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're sort of like druids, like little Jawa wizards or something like that.
Let's see. I mean, enemies. There's a few different enemies now.
Sure.
There's the lizard people.
Yeah, that's right. Those guys are annoying.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the purple lizard guys. Yeah.
I think the mounts. No, there's a new mount, right? There's a green dragon that kicks.
Oh yeah.
It's different than.
I remember that. I'm having trouble. I think
the mounts are hard to distinguish from the games. It gets to after the second one and third one, they kind of blend together a little bit. I think.
Still have the
played that
still
one
have
the
the
longest
fire dragon. There's still a fire dragon that breathes fire, and then there's still the chicken leg. But there's like a green dragon that just takes a kick. There's no.
Yeah. They have a little bit different action, though. I remember the chicken leg. I remember really liking that mount in the first game, but in the second game, it seemed to be a little bit delayed.
Yeah.
A little slower to act, and so I wasn't a big fan of that mount in that game. And something we should mention: you can actually charge with your mounts too, which is kind of nice as well.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I know.
You really need to start like a Golden Axe 101.
Yeah, I think this is probably, well, maybe not, but the most in depth the Golden Axe has been discussed in at least the last 10 years, probably. Right? So,
well, that's what we're gonna say.
Just a hunch.
That's what we're gonna say. But yeah, I think Floyd, we need to get you like a little editing tool that has that like little like advertisement, like the more you know. You remember that do 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 do? Just to play in the background when someone says something, like it comes to this like big epiphany of something they didn't know about a game. So
I'll find
like
it. I'll find it, and then when I put this all together, I'll put that in.
Sure, that sounds great. So anything else?
Forgot there's another attack, right? There's a different attack that it hits enemies on all sides.
Is that I can't remember from the first. Yes. Okay, the first game has the sort of rolling attack, right?
It does a back. It's called a back attack.
Yeah. Okay.
and this is more like a hit enemies on both sides of you kind of attack.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, and I know they carried that over to the third game as well, where you can sort of hit the enemies on both sides of you. There's also another one of the big differences is the magic meter as well. And again, Floyd, cue the More You Know music. And something that Cameron and I did not know when you're playing this, we thought like if you press the magic button, then that was it. If you actually hold down the magic button, you get to select what level of magic you want to use.
My mind is blown for like the 10th time.
I know.
Jeez.
So once again, I mean, these games are very intricate, and it says a lot about like kind of Golden Axe 2, like taking it a step further, and thinking about all these little things that that would enhance the game and make it better. So I mean, I give them a lot of kudos for that. Something else that they changed too was the D-pad throw. You know how you could grab enemies and throw them only in one direction in the first game? You could actually push the opposite way and choose the direction. And I think in the second game, when you threw the enemy and it hit another enemy, it would actually damage them, which it didn't do in the first game.
Yeah,
Right. That would
I really like that feature.
Yeah. So some little like subtle changes that actually made the subtle changes in gameplay that I would say, Golden Axe did really well in sort of enhancing player enjoyment, if you will.
Pushing the realism to the max once
Yeah,
again.
yeah. But they still didn't take out that darn you can hit your friend thing, which sucks.
Well, that's even more real
Well,
now.
whatever.
In this one.
You know what you can do with your realism.
So
anything else, guys?
I do have a question. How do you... I can never actually figure out how to do a grab. I always happen to just do it accidentally.
I think it's like you would hit them so many times, and then you would just walk up to them and press into them. Like you would have to like hit them like I'm gonna say, help me out here, Steven, 3 times or so. Is that right?
It could be 3. I was thinking 2, but I'm not exactly sure. It's a very like nuanced thing. You kind of have to get a real feel for it.
I think it's when you sort of hit them and they sort of like bend over.
Yeah.
At that point, you can go up to them and grab them and throw them. But it wasn't like you could just go up to them and run into them and just do a throw. You had to like, hit them a couple of times. You had to disable them, if you will, or stun them, if you will. So
yeah. It's like, in like Streets of Rage, you could just walk into them and you'll grab them.
Yeah.
And you could do a throw from there. This game's not like that.
yeah. One thing I did want to bring up too, which is something I really like about these 2 games, is the artwork on the covers of these games.
Oh yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. Especially the second one. The second one's got kind of the tops. The artist that did that was Boris Vallejo, who did a lot of like the Conan series, the books and things like that. Who's who else would you call, right?
Well, there's that other guy. It's like Boris Vallejo, and then there's I'm not sure who the other guy was, but they both had like the sort of the fantasy art market on lock. And I wonder, I always wonder if they commit. Frank Frazetta. With a lot of these games, I wonder if they either, commissioned that to be done, or they just kind of like
Stole it?
Boris Vallejo, or they, let's not maybe not stolen, but they just got the rights to it, from him. Or I wonder if if the chicken or the egg kind of thing, like, because there are some discrepancies, on the first one. Just looking at, I think was he blonde and on the cover, and the guy was stuff like that. You just kind of wonder what.
Yeah, the Mega Drive cover looked different. Like, he's blonde and and like it looks like Terrace is wearing like a really tiny bikini on the cover.
Too bad that didn't make it through. Just kidding. I'm gonna be that creepy guy.
We're all thinking the same thing, Rich.
So this game, the first game was 1989. This one came out almost in 1992, but it still made release December 1991, just for Christmas kids, and so just in time. So it was almost a 92 game, and then Golden Axe 3 came out in 93, so not too far behind. So anything else about Golden Axe 2 that you guys specifically liked or wanted to compare to the others? I guess we talked about the story, we talked about the characters. The gameplay is very similar, as we talked about. How about level design? What do we think about the level design in this game as compared to the first?
I thought it was less interesting than the first.
Yeah, I agree.
It's kind of more generic environments. Like, yeah, I remember, one that always stands out to me is the cave.
Yeah,
it's just it's a cave. It's just a very generic cave. Nothing real distinguishing about it. But
yeah,
I don't know. I like cave levels.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with it.
Oh, you're that guy.
There's nothing wrong with the level. It's just I don't know. It's just kind of a bland cave. That's how I remember it. But
yeah, not highly detailed or in that regard. Yeah.
I felt in general though that I kind of thought like the second game they kind of tried to improve on the first game, but it was essentially the same, almost the same game. It was kind of like Home Alone 1 and Home Alone 2. That's the best. Sure, Home Alone 2, you're in New York. It's up. You're not just in the house. You're upping the production value a little bit, but in essence, they just try to improve upon the first one.
We've already had this argument this year, Cameron.
Oh, well, I wasn't on that podcast.
No, you and I have had this argument. I feel like.
We did?
Because I say Home Alone 2 is better. It's got the Tim Curry factor that Home Alone 1 has. So I would compare Tim Curry to the magic meter in this game.
Okay, my mind. Yeah, this is getting a little crazy. I can't handle this. But I think Rich and I, when we played the second one, I think you said you preferred the first one. I think the first one will always have more charm, but I felt like the second one was a little bit easier. Maybe I'm crazy, but we did
finish that one together. So.
Well, yeah, cool. Probably because we beat the second one, but the first one we played like numerous times before Rich figured out all this crazy stuff because he's now the the Golden Axe 1 sensei. But the second one, I felt like we just got through it without really that much thought. It wasn't like, we have to really plan it out. We beat it on our first try. Was that not right?
Yeah, we did.
So, but yeah, we'll talk about 3 in a second, obviously, but the first 2 are much closer together than the third game. So I felt like, 1 and 2, 2 is just sort of like the enhanced first version. Yeah. The 32X version, if you will.
Yeah. God.
Yeah, it felt pretty much the same to me too. I mean, it looked brighter, maybe more vibrant, but it felt very much the same. I'm going to have to agree that the first game has more charm, but there was something about the second game that I liked just a little bit more.
Okay.
Even though the first level was very bland, but kind of, for me, it took off after that point.
Yeah. Well, I thought the hit detection was a little better in the second game, for one. I thought the hitboxes on the enemies were a little easier to detect and to hit. So I think it made it a little bit easier in that regard. In terms of it didn't have the learning curve as far as what the hitbox was that the Golden Axe 1 did. So
yeah, I think it's probably if you even take your emotion out of it, it's probably a better game versus the first one. It's the last boss wasn't nearly as cheap, I felt. And I think they probably fixed little things and added, you can turn around and hit enemies behind you more easily, and then you can throw enemies where you want. It was improved upon, better hit detection.
Magic meter.
Probably just a magic meter you can control. It's not all or nothing like the first one. So yeah, I think it's probably the better game.
I guess they realized the flaws of the first one and
exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is more like Golden Axe Redux.
Easier? What was those reasons or the reasons why it might have been easier? Because they didn't up the difficulty with those new features.
No.
If they would have upped the difficulty and had the new features, it probably would have been maybe equally as hard.
Yeah, I felt the same way. Like that, I felt like it was easier because it was. I feel like the tweaks of the gameplay were better. Like it was more responsive. Like we said, the hit detection was better, and I liked some of the things they added, like being able to throw enemies where you wanted to into other enemies. And so I feel like mechanically, Golden Axe 2 probably is a better game. But we kind of talked about the charm that Golden Axe 1 has, and I think overall, I prefer Golden Axe 1 for those reasons. The environments and I think I prefer the music and some of the sound effects. And
I'm with you, man.
Yeah, kind of torn in that way, but
no, I completely agree. I understand that these things, like you said, exist in Golden Axe 2, and these things to make the game better and to enhance it. But I still think I prefer 1 a lot more. And one of the things I noticed, and I actually saw a video on this, and maybe I'll post it on the thread, but the sounds in Golden Axe 2 aren't as good as they are in 1. When you kill the enemies, there's this like sound, but in the other one, it's in the Golden Axe 2, it's like it's like, it's and
it's not as rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, I really love, that's one of the more iconic things for me with the Golden Axe series is like when you dispatch an enemy, there's that like long like sort of scream, when you dispatch them, and that's that's one of the things that for me is very nostalgic, that sound. I never heard that in a game before, when I was in the arcade. So that was kind of a disappointing thing for me as far as Golden Axe 2 was concerned. And there is a difference in length in between the two games as well.
2's longer, is it not?
I believe it is. I believe it's
a little bit longer, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it seems so. Because I think we could get to the end of the first game in like, Cameron was like 30 minutes and the other one was like 45. So it's about 15 minutes longer. Is that what we decided? I believe.
Yeah, I think the first game was just kind of like, okay, as long as you get to the second boss. I mean, we did that pretty much every time when we played it. So it was really just like, the first part of the game was relatively, you could just kind of breeze through it if you knew what's going on. Whereas the second game, I felt like it was sort of more of a longer experience, and not just like, okay, game, then last boss, you die a lot. And then the second one's more like it's all more paced evenly, I guess you could say.
Sure.
It wasn't, more natural.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it's more like Golden Axe 1.5.
Yeah.
I would say so.
Yeah.
That's a good way to describe it. Except it's not. It's 2.
Because I think everything that we've said, it improves on the first one, but I guess because everyone or almost everyone played the first one first, that's what's more near and dear to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, for a lot of us, I think so. Yeah, but I mean, I could see I could see how people could make argument that Golden Axe 2 is a better game. I wouldn't argue with that, like gameplay wise. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right.
Just imagine if they had made a Ultra Beast 2, that would have been pretty cool.
Well, they did. They made it for the Game Boy Advance, and it sucks.
Oh.
I pretend like that didn't exist.
Yeah, pretend like you didn't hear
the prequels
that.
to Star Wars. Yeah, I don't know what Game Boy Advance. I just whatever.
Yeah, that's a very nostalgic game for me too, but we won't get into that. All right, anything else for Golden Axe 2? Any thoughts, questions, concerns? That's what my teacher always said. All right, well, let's move on to 3. All right, Nick, tell us a little bit about 3 and this huge plot twist in 3.
Okay, well, 3 is one I'm not too familiar with, so just bear with me.
Just kidding. There's no plot twist.
I was excited.
So just bear with me on the plot.
Sure.
So from what I know, it wasn't successful, right? It wasn't like a successful game, really.
Well, it was only released in Japan. It wasn't released anywhere else, and a big reason of that is, and from what I understand, rumors are that people didn't like it. They just didn't feel like it was a good continuation of the series. People were really disappointed in it in Japan, so it never made it overseas, which is a shame. I mean, anytime you've got to beat 'em up, no matter how bad it is or different it is, it's always kind of nice, to have that version of the game. So it was only released over there. And again, it was released in, as I said before, Golden Axe 2 was released December of 91, mid-month before Christmas, and then, which is basically 92, and then this game was released in 1993, so I think it's probably about a year and a half later from the second game. So,
Do you think a different team developed the third one?
I'm not sure.
Because it feels like a totally different game. I mean, we'll get into that, but it was a huge departure when you compare it to the first two. I mean, noticeably big difference.
Sure.
So I'll go into the plot a little bit. So it's really different from the first two. Totally different characters. There's a guy named Damood Hellstrike.
Right.
And he takes the golden axe and puts a curse on all the warriors.
Yep, completely different, but looks just like Death Adder, surprisingly.
Oh, yeah.
Long lost cousin removed.
Yeah, and that seems like to be the running theme, because the only one that looks different is Proudcracker, the Black Panther.
No, Proud Cragger is the giant.
Oh, he's the giant. Okay.
Yeah, it's Kronos Late.
That's right. Kronos Late
is the Panther. Yeah, and we've got some pretty
Those
odd
are some
characters.
bizarre names.
Yeah.
There's King Grinder,
and
who looks like
King
Axe
Grinder.
Battler.
Yeah, he's not Axe Battler, but he looks just like him.
And then there's Sara Byrne, who resembles Tyrus.
Right. Yeah, but not her.
And
Though
from what research I did about it, Gilius Thunderhead is in the game, but he's not playable. He's just in the game.
That's correct. That's correct. He's more of like your. He's at the beginning of the game. He's more like your advisor.
Okay.
In other words, he's telling you, you need to retrieve the golden axe and all that, but he's not a playable character in the game. So, which is a little disappointing, to move. We've moved into 4 new characters now. It's nice to have 4 characters to choose from instead of the usual 3, but I don't know. There's something sort of comforting in having, to make a Golden Axe 3 game, it's something comforting in having those characters that you're used to and, feel sort of right at home with.
Right. I mean, if you're going to make them look like Axe Battler, you might as well just make them Axe Battler. I mean, what
Right.
And also,
are they supposed to be like the descendants of the original 3?
I don't think so. Not as far as I know. They all have different backstories, and I'm not really sure what Cain and Sarah, what their backstories are. I know that like the Panther guy was, once human and turned into, through sorcery, turned into this Panther, and I believe that Cragger was he imprisoned by this group of people? Was it his people, or like the giants were like imprisoned? Or something like that, because if you see his photo, he's got the broken manacles, on his arms. So I think there's something like that. Each one has their own backstory. It's a lot more in depth backstory in this game. It's not just a revenge plot or simply just seeking the axe. Although that's what you're basically doing.
Oh, I forgot to mention this one. Even though it was only available overseas, you can get it on the Sega Channel. From what I read about, I mean, the Sega Channel was short-lived, so not a lot of people probably got it.
Did anybody have the Sega Channel? And of you guys?
I never got.
I didn't.
I never got to play. What was it, Mega Man? There was a Mega Man game. Wily Wars was on there.
All right. Yeah, that was a. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then there's Golden Axe. I don't know what else was on Sega Channel.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, that was that came out sort of late in the lifespan of the Genesis, I think.
What did Wily Wars?
No, of the Sega Channel, if I'm correct, because I think they were kind of transitioning from. They're trying to keep people interested and probably try to make money in a different way, because I think they were, maybe the sales were going down and they could just say, well, you don't have to buy the game, you can just subscribe to this and. But then again, I'm getting off topic. That's a whole different podcast. Sega Channel podcast.
So let's talk about some of the differences other than the characters in the game.
I'll let y'all. So y'all were the ones that played it. So maybe it's best if y'all talk about that.
Who actually? Yeah. Now this wasn't originally. Our intention wasn't to play the third game. I should mention this. We'd only kind of decided we were going to do Golden Axe 1 and 2, but we decided to include the third game for anyone who wanted to play it. I mean, beat 'em ups are so kind of one setting game. So we just thought, if anybody wants to play it and anybody has it in their collection or on a collection disc, that they could go ahead and play it. So let's see who all did play it. Floyd, did you play this, or Steven?
I actually didn't.
Didn't make it this one.
I bought the first 2 games on Steam, which I'm now regretting. And then so I played them for a bit, and then I went away on a little bit of like a camping / road trip.
Yeah.
Came back and played some more, so
Sure.
I kind of missed out on the third one.
Yeah. Okay. How about you, Steven?
Yeah, I played them on the Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection. Or
Okay.
I played Golden Axe 3 on the Genesis Collection.
Now, did you beat this game, Steven?
I did beat it. I got
You what?
believe to the final boss. No, I didn't beat it. I know.
You what?
You're not the beast anymore.
I just want to point out, I knew he didn't beat the game. I just wanted him to admit it on the show
Yeah.
because he beats
But
everything.
the reason I didn't beat it, the reason I didn't beat it was because I felt like it wasn't worth beating.
Oh,
So it wasn't.
Okay.
It was not worthy of you
That's
completing
right.
it.
You got a little
No,
emo
yeah,
on
I
it
wasn't.
then, all right.
wasn't a huge fan of this game, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay.
And we'll talk about some of those reasons, but
Sure. What are some things you can point to? What are some reasons you didn't like?
well, I
the
guess we'll
game,
just
or-
start talking about some differences in
Sure.
the gameplay, and the gameplay is very different.
Absolutely.
The game it feels completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just asking if this game was made by a different development team. I actually looked it up, and it was made by a different Sega development team.
Okay.
So that maybe that could explain some of that.
Mm-hmm.
The moveset in this game is a lot more complex than the first two.
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually, unless you look at a FAQ or a guide of some sort, you're probably not aware of all the different maneuvers that are in the game. Because when I looked at a walkthrough or a guide or whatever, I was surprised by just how long the list of different maneuvers were.
Mm-hmm.
But you have like sweeping techniques, a blocking technique, various special attacks. And I don't know if you guys know this, but there's actually a double team move in the game.
That's what I've heard. With attacks and magic.
Yeah.
I didn't
neat.
know that, but yeah, I read that after the fact.
Yeah. And I didn't play the game in co-op, so I didn't get to experiment with that. But
Yeah.
Man, I think not to butt in, but Rich and I played it on same thing as you on the collection, and I think we didn't really give the game a fair shake, just because of course we're playing on a different controller, and maybe the HD TV had something to do with some sort of slight delay.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd be really curious to play it on the original hardware and see then how it stacks up. I mean, all differences in aside as far as aesthetics, and we get different
Sure.
characters, but I wonder if we kind of look at it from not from like, okay, this is a Golden Axe game, but sort of take it for what it is, maybe we'd have a sort of a different opinion on it.
I agree with that. I think if this game had a different name, it would probably be looked at more favorably.
Absolutely.
And I really think that playing on the Genesis collection had a lot to do with my negative experience with, I know the controls definitely felt delayed, and it was probably because of the HD TV and the input lag.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, trying to go back and forth from the Genesis controller to the PS3 controller, it doesn't feel as good. You definitely want to use an old school Sega controller to play this game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I actually thought that Rich would have played this on his Retron. But
Yeah.
do you have the carts? for these?
Yeah, I do. Some games I've played on my Retron, and there's, it's still emulated, so there's a bit of lag on things. Like I tried to play Mega Man 3 on the Retron, and I couldn't do it. I mean, it's just it had a bit of a lag to it. Now I don't know if that's just my setup or whatever, but
I played the first Mega Man game on the Retron just so I would have the use of save state, since there's no password system in that game.
right.
And there's definitely a big difference between the Retron and playing on the original console.
Yeah.
And that's not something you want for Mega Man, especially.
No, and I'm proud to say I did beat that game on the Retron.
Whatever, man.
I know I did it. I did it. So
With your save passwords, come on.
well, only
You're
between
saved.
levels, just so I wouldn't have to
Whatever.
play through the whole game in one
Okay.
sitting. I didn't save in the middle of levels.
You're not.
Hey, if you beat that game at all, even with a Game Genie, I'm going to give it to you, man.
Yeah.
That's a tough game.
Yeah, it is. I actually did. Well, never mind. We're not talking about Mega Man. We've already done that. We've been there, done that. So
Yeah, that was last month.
Yeah, that was so last month. So something else that you could do in this game was choose your own path, which I really liked that aspect of this game. That was neat. You know, and it added to the replayability of the game as well, because you know you could come back, and I think someone mentioned on the forums that they think always choosing the upwards path is easier. I don't know. I think I played through the game maybe 3 times total.
I only played through it twice, and I think that might be true, because I think the first time I played it I mostly took the downward paths, and then the second time I think I took more of the upward paths, and I made it further the second time. And I know there was one level in particular I thought was much easier than the alternative one. There's one where you're kind of on the top of a flying eagle, I guess sort of like the first game, except it's different perspective. But yeah, you're on top of this flying eagle thing, and I thought that level was actually much easier than the other one, which I don't remember what the alternative one was, but yeah.
I don't remember any. I think the one specific thing that I remember is you had that level that when you're on like the cart thing, like a moving.
Yeah.
That's like the second. That's like the second level. Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, they're obviously bringing some new elements into it, but I also kind of wonder, you know, how, you know, of course our Mario 2 was not the one that they got in Japan. It was like what Doki Doki Panic essentially.
Sure.
The game?
Yep. That's it.
I wonder if this Golden Axe might have just started out as something totally different. They just decided to slap on Golden Axe at the last minute and say, well, let's just throw in some random backstory, and you know, we got these weird characters. What the hell?
Maybe. I mean, I know that your final boss is basically the same. I mean, it's, you know, the Death Adder type character. So, but that could have been changed in production. You know, it could have been something they started doing, and then they decided to sort of, you know, switch it up. You know.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. Maybe it was like a game they started out as something different, and then they just said, well, let's throw in some elements like the final boss. That'd probably be easy to swap around and then make it a Golden Axe sequel.
Yeah, remember, you heard it here, folks. Golden Axe 3 conspiracy theories.
Yeah, sort of like Home Alone 3. You know, it's actually, this is I'm wondering, you know, there's a lot of parallels to the Home Alone franchise because now hear me out. I mean, Home Alone 3. Where's Macaulay Culkin? You know, it was released straight to video, just like this was released just in Japan. You know, I think new robbers, new characters. It's Illuminati, the Home Alone, Golden Axe Illuminati. If I'm not here tomorrow, tell the world my story.
Floyd, can you make sure that you put this in our podcast bumper about how we compare Home Alone to Golden Axe? I think we'll get a lot of listeners just for that.
For sure.
All right. Jeez. All right. So, okay. So I think like a lot of us, you know, this game was different, and I think after playing it for a while, I think we sort of saw some high spots in the game. A few of us did, because I didn't like it at first. I actually played it before Cameron came over and we played it together. And I remember the first night I played, I texted Cameron. I was like, I'm playing Golden Axe 3, and you're like, how is it? I'm like, oh man, it's so bad. And then I went to Twitter and I posted this comment on Twitter, and I'm gonna clean this up a little bit so Floyd doesn't have to edit it out. I put, what's the difference between Golden Axe 3 and a bucket of excrement? Answer, the bucket.
That's harsh, man.
And immediately one of my followers is Akari Nuku. And immediately when I said that, he immediately tweets back, like, what are you talking about? And then it just became this thread of, you know, us like arguing about, like, he's a heavy supporter of Golden Axe 3. It's actually his favorite in the series. And I would have loved to have had him on, but I don't think we could have handled having 6 people on this podcast.
Are we sure that is Golden Axe 3 the only one he's played in the series?
I don't think so. No, he's.
I was just making a joke.
Oh, sorry. My joke detector wasn't on, I guess. Sorry.
Yeah, the sarcasm didn't translate over on the.
Oh, I had too much going on in my head right there. But yeah, I mean, he is an absolute defender of this game and loves this game. And then, you know, after Cameron and I played it together, I sent him a message back, and I even tweeted something, you know, not as bad as I originally thought. Still not my favorite game in the series. It's my least favorite, and I think most of you would probably agree with that. But I did find that it is a fairly fun game, and I think it was Cameron that mentioned, like, if if this was titled something else, would it be like sort of this, beat 'em up that people would still seek out? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean it's sort of like what is that? A Shakespeare quote? If a rose was called something else, would it smell as sweet? I don't know. I mean, would Golden Axe 3, would it be different if we thought it, had its own identity as a different game, and not in the series?
I think so. I think probably so. I think it would be one that, like, as a beat 'em up collector and someone like me who's really starting to focus heavily on beat 'em ups, especially for the Super Nintendo, which we'll kind of talk about in a little bit, but I think it would be one that I would seek out just because it is a beat 'em up. It's different, and not having the previous titles to compare it to if it was called something else, it would be something I wouldn't have that expectation, in other words, right? I think that's what happens with this game, is you have that expectation of what it's supposed to be, and it's not. And because of that, you're disappointed and you judge it a little too early. You have to really give it some place. So
yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I agree with you. Actually, when the first time I played it, I was like, this is not good. And then I think when I played it the second time, it kind of grew on me a little bit. I still definitely didn't like it as much as the first two games, but I wonder if I played it some more and maybe played it in co-op, if that would really help it to kind of rise in the ranks. Maybe I would like it much more than I do right now.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Like, you know what?
We're not going to let it go, are we?
I'm going to get one 2 twice, and I'm like, I don't really like it as much as the first one, but maybe if I watched it more, I might appreciate it more.
all I gotta say is two turtle doves. 2 turtle doves. It's about friendship.
Well, if you want to really compare apples to apples, we'd have to talk about Home Alone 3, which was a whole different cast of characters and all that stuff.
Oh God.
But anyway, enough with the
enough Home Alone.
The Home Alone. As much as I'd like to continue on, I need to keep my mouth shut.
Home Alone.
That is also for a different podcast.
Sure.
Yeah. We are, folks, you guys are listening. I'm actually hosting my own Home Alone podcast.
We could play the Home Alone games one show and then talk about the movies to tie it in.
Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and quit this show. Oh, all right. Well, we talked about like several overarching sort of game elements, between all 3 games. And one of the things that all 3 games kept, and I thought was kind of neat, was these sort of interlude stages where you can power up and beat up on some wizards and little munchkin elves, and I kind of want to talk about that. And one of the things, before everybody starts speaking, one of the things that I thought was cool that Russ Lyman mentioned was he likened this part of the game to the game Shovel Knight. You know how it has that interlude where you're kind of lying around the campfire? Mm-hmm. And sort of how like the creators of Shovel Knight like possibly and probably undoubtedly had Golden Axe in mind, as they created that game, because there's always that level interlude where the Shovel Knight is sitting there, leaning up against the fire and sleeping. So I thought that was kind of a neat little thing and something that Russ noticed in the game. But anyway, the interludes. They differed.
Real quick.
Right? Some more annoying than others, I think.
Yeah. Well, the if you want to also make a comparison to Altered Beast, there's those kind of like little not cut scenes, but like where you have the hand drawing part of the map or going across. The same sort of thing in Altered Beast where you kind of see another part of the story unfold. Sure. That's common in a lot of games. Ninja Gaiden, Gaiden, whatever. You have those anime kind of cutscene that sort of cutscene stuff. But I thought that was really cool because it kind of keeps you interested. You feel like you're making progress. It's not just like in Ghosts and Goblins or Golden Ghosts where it shows you like that sort of crazy long. It's like you know how much of the game's left, and it's kind of daunting. Where this feels like you're making progress. And it changes, you have it'll draw something and I just thought it brought a really cool element to the game where you just saw your progress and it really had a real arcade feel to it.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like next stage 2.
Yeah. And I guess
Kinda
what I was
gives it a
talking about
flow.
sort of the interludes too was like the sort of the elf bashing and stuff like that, where you would like gain power ups and things like that.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. It kind of
Yeah.
felt like unnecessary to me. Some of them were a lot more annoying than others. Like Golden Axe 3 was like extremely annoying
Really?
because like they would
Yeah.
like go underground and then you would have to sort of it was awful. And if you
I
didn't,
found I had a really hard time hitting the elves in 3
yeah,
anyway, because they
Yeah.
just their movement pattern. Every time I got close to one, they would just move, and sometimes I would end up missing out on the power up completely.
yeah. I mean, it's just sort of like you did it right the first time. It wasn't that hard the first time. If you wanted to do something cutesy like that, just keep it simple. Don't make it like so involved and complicated. I mean, let's just play Kick the Elf and give me my food, give me my magic.
Yeah. Well, I noticed that in the it might have been all of them. They always take you. They always take some away from you first. They steal some.
Yeah.
So you're kind of halfway. You're essentially just trying to get back
Get
what
your
you
stuff
lost.
back.
And
Yeah.
and sometimes you wouldn't. Sometimes you just even out, right? And then other times you would actually maybe get ahead. So that was kind of
Yeah,
annoying.
you just made me
the fact
really hate that stuff.
that- yeah. Sorry.
I guess the best part was the music. I mean, the music.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's my favorite. I mean, yeah. I mean, I didn't really care for it. It was one of those things where it was like, okay, I mean, get this stuff. Like, I'd rather just
Yeah.
play. But the music was I like the music.
Yeah.
Where the
Yeah. And it's something that, I mean, those scenes are like kind of endearing to Golden Axe games too. You come to expect them. It makes them special
Yeah.
in that way of not being like other beat 'em ups at the time. So let's see. Speaking of other beat 'em ups at the time, let's sort of move on and sort of compare these games to other things that were going on at the time. And I had mentioned, we had talked about a little bit about Genesis and Super Nintendo kind of around at the same time. And, comparatively both systems, I mean, the Super Nintendo far superior in the category of beat 'em ups as far as at least, I don't want to say quality, but at least quantity of beat 'em ups. And it's arguable whether, the quality was better or not. One of the probably the most noted series on the Genesis was something we've already played in our playthrough, but the Streets of Rage series. So I guess my question is kind of throw to you guys is like, how would we sort of compare this to the Streets of Rage series? Can we compare them to each other?
I mean, they're comparable. I mean, they're both in the same console. They're both same genre. I mean, you can compare them. I mean, of course, one's fantasy, one's sort of, I guess, modern day, so to speak.
Real life.
And then, right, yeah, one's real life, the other one's, so. But I think they have a lot of the same same elements, same sort of gameplay, and I think they're very comparable. And they're both, I guess Streets of Rage is unique in a sense that I always kind of thought it. You guys may say I'm a jerk if I say it, but it was kind of like the final fight for the Genesis. That's the way I sort of saw that. I mean, not technically because if you look at it, of course, Final Fight it was an arcade port, but but in the sense, it's kind of like it was pretty early on in the Genesis. I mean, I remember it was the packing game for a while. I'm not sure if it was before Sonic or after Sonic. I think it might have been before Sonic. I mean, maybe the Genesis historians can correct me, but it was pretty early on in the it wasn't a launch title, but it was pretty not too far after I think the Streets of Rage came out. So I wonder they were probably produced around not too many years apart.
Yeah.
You know?
It was a game with Streets of Rage in the same vein as Final Fight, but of course the Super Nintendo would always find some way to flub up a great series and make it only one player until Final Fight 2 came out. So in that reason, I kind of feel like Streets of Rage had a bit of an advantage, and having done and having played those Streets of Rage games in depth. I don't know. That's a strong series. I mean, that was a very enjoyable series for me to play, and kind of gave me an appreciation of not only that series but the Genesis console as a whole.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a really strong series.
Yeah, I feel like
I mean,
all three of them on Genesis are really good.
Yeah, and I know the Final Fight games got better.
Mm-hmm.
As you went on, you were able to co-op more and stuff like that. But still,
which of the Streets of Rage games did you guys decide were your favorites?
Well, we had a lot of people. 1 and 2 were by far the favorites, and we were kind of split down the middle about which one was everyone's favorite. 3 kind of just went off the grid once again. Yeah, very bizarre.
that was my favorite part as a kid.
Yeah.
I mean,
Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, my cousin said, if just don't beat up the trainer, just don't beat up the kangaroo, and you get to use them. And sure enough, But was 3 a lot longer of a game than the first?
It was
2?
a lot more difficult. I mean, it amped up the difficulty, and the characters were, again, like we said, a lot more bizarre, and it just, the level of difficulty got rough. You still beat it, though, didn't you, Steven? Yes, shut up.
Well, I wasn't gonna.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I did.
You did.
Gosh!
It took me very many tries. Kind of each playthrough, inching my way forward, and it's a good thing I like the Streets of Rage games as much as I do, or I probably wouldn't have. It probably would have been like Golden Axe 3, where I wouldn't have bothered.
Yeah.
Right. Was the last boss? Spoiler alert! Was the last boss in 3? It was like a guy with a machine gun or something? I remember it being really unfair, or a woman with a machine gun.
I don't really remember, honestly. It's been
No, that's Final Fight.
Well, I think
Where the guy has the machine gun, right?
I think it was either one or 2.
Yeah. The guy at the end of 1 and 2 has a machine gun too. But Final Fight's where you knock the guy out the window, right, with the machine gun. Is that right?
I think in 3 it was some kind of like robot thing or something. I don't really remember, to be honest.
So
I only saw it once, so
yeah,
and it's been about almost 2 years, I think. So
yeah, it has.
Once, and the one and only time you'll ever probably do it for your insanity, right?
Probably,
yeah. But getting back to like Streets of Rage and kind of comparing that to Golden Axe, I mean, one of the things the games are sort of similar in the fact that, like, instead of magic, you have this ability to sort of call in. I know in the first game, you could sort of call in a rocket launcher. A guy pulls up in a car and shoots a rocket launcher and clears the screen, much like the magic in the Golden Axe series. So that's pretty cool. I mean, that's a really neat concept to the game. One of the things I guess I like about the Golden Axe series as compared to it is that when you do your sort of special move, when you press both buttons at the same time to do your sort of your backwards roll and stuff, you don't lose energy for doing your sort of special moves.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that was one thing I thought they really got right in the game.
I never really liked whenever the games would do that. You lose energy if you're doing some special moves.
Yeah, it's a popular thing in games, though, especially for those.
Yeah.
If you're going to use it, you have to take a penalty for doing so.
Right.
So
I think, like, what is it? It might have been other games too, but the X-Men game for the Genesis, like, you lose health if you use like Wolverine's claws or something. Like, what are they thinking? I mean, come on, that's the whole point. So yeah, I agree. I was never a fan of, using it's like, does it take that much out of the character? Isn't that what they train for?
Sure.
Come on.
All right.
What I find interesting to note is this game came out. Golden Axe came out. The first one came out like a few months after Double Dragon 2 for the NES.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah. So it's just like
I
guess
guess it's another series we could sort of compare it to as Double Dragon. Of course, that was kind of a cross-pollinated game. I mean, you don't really see as many copies of it for the Genesis out there, but it definitely made the Genesis system.
Yeah.
Is it this? Is it the same game?
Double
Or is
Dragon
it? I mean, is it?
It's Double Dragon.
Okay, for the Genesis and this.
I don't know if it was the same one on the Genesis. What was it called? Genesis.
Not really sure. Yeah, not a very good Genesis historian, I'm sorry to say.
Here, I'll let you know. I'll look it up while you guys are talking, because we got to get this right.
So of the series, I think we've all sort of talked about like what our favorite games were, and I think most of us, I think we're a little bit split, right? Steven and you and I are Golden Axe 1, right?
Before we get into this, there's one game I do want to compare Golden Axe to. I think it's a pretty obvious comparison, but that's Alien Storm.
Oh,
you guys familiar with that?
Yeah. I own Alien Storm.
Yeah.
Alien Storm, is that the one where that was an arcade game too, correct? Or am
I
thinking of something
believe it
I believe
was.
it was. Yeah.
Is this the one where you have the sort of like the stages where you actually it's kind of like a crosshairs thing where you shoot?
Yeah.
Like that's a great game.
Yeah, it's actually to me the game looks and feels very similar to Golden Axe. It's almost like a futuristic version of Golden Axe where you're fighting aliens. I mean, yeah, it kind of has that same sort of combat feel where you sort of get locked into that combo kind of thing, and just graphically the game looks very similar. And it was made by the same development team. Came out maybe a little bit after the first Golden Axe, so I think it's no coincidence.
Right. But it has more like ranged weapons and stuff like that, doesn't it? So
well, they're ranged weapons. Like you have like a
flamethrower, is that right?
Flamethrower, but it's still like all close range melee stuff.
Okay.
They're not really not projectiles.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just I just always found that game to be very similar to Golden Axe.
Yeah, great point.
Just to clarify, I'm looking up the Genesis Double Dragon. There are I think 3 games. The first one, it says it's a port of the arcade game, apparently, from our research. And then there's a Golden Axe. There's a Double Dragon 3, the arcade game. I don't know what that is. And then there's a Double Dragon 5 that takes with a TV show or something. So I don't know.
That's actually a fighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the first one is the first Double Dragon is actually an unlicensed Sega Genesis game. It's a whole different shape. It's kind of like the Tengen games. I didn't know that.
I didn't either. The more you know.
So anyway, I digress.
All right. So we sort of talked about what our favorite games were, I guess, and I know that Stephen and I were on the side of Golden Axe 1. Floyd, I don't know if I heard which one your favorite was. I think Nick and Cameron were more like Golden Axe 2 is probably their favorite game.
I'm gonna have to go with the first one.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Why? Just out of curiosity.
I guess because it kind of set up the formula of what the later games would like follow.
Sure.
I find like Golden Axe 1 and 2 to be really similar, but there's something about the first one that I guess clicked with me more, that I liked it more.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of a tough decision for me. I it's like, I think, I forget who said this is like Golden Axe 1.5, like Golden Axe 2. That's why
Floyd said
about
that.
Golden Axe 2. It's, I mean, the only thing I don't like about Golden Axe 2 is that there's not a challenge on the normal level. I mean, I could always put up hard, get a better challenge.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just feel like it's a little bit more improved. So it's really hard. There's sound problems I have. It's like Golden Axe 1 has better sound to me, but I like the playability of Golden Axe 2. So it's really hard for me to say which one's better.
Yeah. If you were recommending them to someone, I would just say, they're cheap. Get both of them.
Yeah.
If you like an intro Genesis collector, hey, why not have them both?
Yeah, that's probably what I would say too.
Yeah, I mean
which is great.
They're different enough, of course.
I'm glad they're still cheap. I'm glad they're not one of those things like Legend of Zelda, where it's not a rare game. It's a very, very, very common game. Everybody has.
Sure.
But it's
like Contra.
But it's kind of expensive to get. I mean, for like someone just like getting a game, just like. So I'm glad they're still cheap. I'm glad it's a relatively cheap game to still pick up.
Yeah.
Well, for now.
Yeah,
for now. Who knows? After this podcast, the value could just soar.
Yeah, one thing. One thing is Sega games are definitely starting to rise in value and go up.
Yeah, it's weird.
We're starting to see that now.
They took a dip. They were rising and they took a dip. And then
2 or 3 years ago, I mean, and I can tell you from like experience from our local store. Cameron and I, we have a friend that owns a local store, and he couldn't sell Genesis games for a long time.
No.
And now he told me, he's like, man, I'm selling them all the time. People are coming and getting Sega Genesis games, and I think it has a lot to do like in the business of pinball. Like like the new games are so expensive, and then nobody can afford them, so they drop back to something else. And then, I can't afford that now, so I'm going to drop back, and they just keep going back. And I feel that way.
Here we come, Game Gear.
And I feel that way with. Here we come. Yeah, I feel that way with Nintendo, and then the height of Super Nintendo, and then N64 games started getting expensive, and people are entering the market and the job force where they can afford those. And I feel that way that Genesis is kind of that system where, gosh, I can't afford to collect for this. Let me try to go get a Genesis collection now. So we're seeing a little more of that. So
yeah. Well, let me add real quick. I think as far as like what's the better game, I'd say, or what's my favorite game and what I think the better game is different.
Sure.
Okay.
I think
That's a good point.
Golden Axe 2 is probably the better game. I mean, we've made improvements, but if I think personal preference, I just nostalgia. I think it's the rose-colored glasses thing. Like nostalgia is a huge thing, and I look upon Golden Axe 1 very fondly, even with its shortcomings. Whereas I never grew up with Golden Axe 2. So if I had to choose, definitely number 1. If I could, never play if I could only play 1 for the rest of my life, probably number 1. So that's my vote.
Sure. Good. Well, we're just going to wrap it up and see if anybody has any closing thoughts. One thing that I wanted to propose is sort of what the current status is of the beat 'em up genre. It seems like this is sort of something that has, as I was sort of thinking about it, is something that sort of disappeared from video games. You don't see a lot of it. Most of your games now are these kind of third-person, first-person shooters. And, genres like shmups and beat-em-ups are sort of kind of going away. But, there are these sort of inklings, and I think we mentioned this in another podcast, but games such as sort of that combined platformer sort of beat 'em up genre, like what's the one that just got kickstarted? The guy who did the Castlevania games just kickstarted. Bloodstained.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it sort of has sort of a beat 'em up feel to it. Not exactly a classic beat 'em up in that sense.
You guys should keep your eyes out for Mother Russia Bleeds.
Okay.
It's,
All right.
Is that
it's like a Soviet style Streets of Rage.
Really?
Oh, wow.
So it's like the sequel to Russian Attack?
Yeah.
Is that accurate? Okay.
Did you just make that up, Floyd, or is that a real game?
No. It's a real game. Look it up.
Okay, cool. I was going to say, that's an awesome title if you just made that up. All right. So what do you guys think about that?
Got to trust those indies to come up with weird titles.
Absolutely. And I feel like there's still enough of us around, that love these type of games and these, retro style games and these old genres that kind of harken us back to our younger days. I think, you could come up with something really awesome and it would sell. You could kickstart it and it would sell. And I think we're seeing more of that now.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're all forgetting about what Dragon's Crown is a very
good point.
A very, a very good sort of modern beat 'em up with sort of, I guess, RPG elements, and I guess you can compare that to the Dungeons and Dragons games on the arcades and then on the Japanese Saturn.
It's really similar.
Yeah, so it can be done. But I guess the question is the market there to sell these to people other than just like the nostalgia guys that are, I'm not sure what percentage of the population of game, modern game purchasers or consumers are sort of in our, retro kind of camp. But I think the interest in retro games has obviously grown tremendously. Just from the price increases and stuff, people discovering them, and when I used to work at the game store, I'd always see young kids only interested in retro games. So it's interesting to see that it's kind of like a novelty to the young kids. They're like, oh wow, I've only played games that look real. I've never played a game that's like simplistic, and they never played our Atari or their Game Boy in the back of their parents' car, and black and gray or green and gray rather. So it's interesting to see what you know, I mean, I guess the Dragon's Crown was pretty successful.
Yeah,
I imagine.
I think it was. It still commands a pretty good price too.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that it was a success for the company. I guess was it Vanillaware that developed it? I think they did there's that PS2 game they did too. It's on the tip
Odin
of my tongue.
Sphere, is it?
Yes, Odin Sphere.
Yeah.
And did they
Muramasa Demon Blade too, right? That's the same.
That was kind of like a hack slash beat 'em up too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. So to answer the question that has become, I've forgotten what the actual question was, but just that's a common problem.
I think it was
with
something
me, but,
about Home Alone 1 and 2. No.
Home Alone, yeah. So Home Alone 2 is the same exact movie as Home Alone 1, except for the homeless woman was anyway. So, but to answer the real question that I forgot, I think it's definitely viable. I just don't know if the market it's where it needs to be for them to not play it safe and just put up the next like Halo 900 or all the first person shooters where all the controls are all the same and the storyline is the only thing that's different and it's just the same game.
I agree. It's just the beat 'em up. I love beat 'em ups. I love playing. I mean, the newer ones. I played Dragon's Crown. I like that one. Like the newer ones, they're like combo related, like God of War, and then Devil May Cry. The ones that are more combo based, I'm not really into those as much.
Right.
I mean, they can be fun, but I'm not into them as much as I am just like punching this guy in the face a bunch of times is a lot more.
Yeah, that more 2D atmosphere too, as well.
We know what I think the biggest issue is probably there's too many darn buttons on these new consoles. I mean, not to sound like an old man, but it's with a beat 'em up. I think like we were saying. I mean, the Genesis had 3 buttons and then a D-pad, so it's and then start button. But 3 buttons in the D-pad, and you could pull off all the moves you needed to do, as we saw in number 2 and even 3. So having all these extra buttons, I think they probably feel like they have to use all the buttons on the game, And I mean, I feel like an idiot like when I try to play these games now because it's just like I keep like there's a menu that comes up and it's just so much of a learning curve for me, that I think if they need to like make the old man controller for the PS3 or PS4, and it just has 3 buttons. And if you want to get really crazy, you get the 6-button fighter controller, and then you just play all the games and just not even worry about all the other stuff. It's like, oh, I can't block. That's all right. I just need 3 buttons.
I mean, like games.
In my day, we couldn't block.
I mean, the 2 games that I see really popular now are the shooters and the craft games where you have to make you're like like Alien Isolation and
Sure.
There's games where you have to you're like building things in the game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to like what to call it. Really crafting item games,
Yeah.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking. Where you have to find you find this, and if you find like this and that, you can combine the 2 to make this that you need.
There's a lot of those games now. I mean, they're fun, but it's just like it's a common theme now. It's one of those common themes in new games. So.
Right.
All right. Let's reel us back in here to a little bit of Golden Axe. No, it's interesting.
All
interesting conversation. I think the question kind of pushed into that. So no, that's great. So.
Well, I'm claiming the copyright information. I have it all written out for the 3-button PS4 controller. So
the old man stick.
Old man stick. If anybody has a problem, or anybody wants to, you'll hear from my lawyer, which I'll have to hire.
All right.
So.
Well, thanks, guys. Any more closing thoughts or anything on Golden Axe anyone has, or anything that we didn't discuss?
Well, if you didn't play it this month, give it a shot.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Cameron said it best, and this is the most in-depth Golden Axe conversation out there. So I hope people will enjoy 2 hours of Golden Axe conversing. So,
and if not, we did, and I'm definitely happy you guys had me on the podcast. I appreciate the conversation, and thanks for letting me be your guest for this
Absolutely.
evening.
We enjoyed having you, and thank you too, Nick, for choosing the game for this month.
Oh, yeah, it was a blast.
We enjoyed having you as well, and love to have you guys back sometime to talk about some games.
Anytime.
Good choice,
Yeah,
Nick.
thanks. Yeah,
Very good choice.
I love these games. So natural choice.
All right. So next month in August, the retro side is going to play a little bit of Nintendo again, back to the NES, to Little Nemo the Dream Master. I will not. I actually will be playing the game, but actually, let's see. Yeah, I am on that side, aren't I? Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Yep, I will be playing Little Nemo next month.
Yeah,
I'm so
you didn't
confused
switch
with the
this month.
schedule. I'm so confused with the
Yeah,
schedule.
you're not switching sides. Only me and
That's
Floyd.
right. That's right. Floyd is hosting Little Nemo, not Sean. Yeah, I was thinking about the next month when I'm doing Indigo Prophecy on the modern side. So sorry about that. Yeah. So Floyd, do you want to tell us a little bit about Little Nemo, the Dream Master?
So, Little Nemo, classic NES game by Capcom. So, you already know it's going to be something good. It's actually based off of a comic strip called Little Nemo in Slumberland. Yeah, it's kind of a neat premise where all the levels that you play are in like these dream settings. So they're all sort of fun, cute, and that kind of thing. 2D side-scrolling type game that the NES is known for.
Yeah, should be a lot of fun.
Should be fun, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. We really appreciate it. Thanks for listening to the show. And until next time.
All right, so welcome to our modern segment. We got the gang kind of back together. Rich, what are you doing slumming with us modern guys in the basement playing a game that we had to give copies away to get people to play
We
it?
still didn't have that many people play it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I thought I'd give it a chance. You know, I haven't played a modern game in a while. I actually played Tomb Raider the month you guys played, but I didn't play enough of it to really join the call. So, you know, just thought I'd join. Have a good time.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, and I'm also joined by Steven. Steven, how you doing, man?
Good. Yeah, it's my first month on the modern side.
That's right.
That's right. You were officially flip-flopped over to the modern as my co-pilot this month. So, welcome aboard. And the game in question that I chose was Warhammer 40k Space Marine, and it's really hard to just to even say it without that accent. And we'll get to exactly why that is later on in the show. But now we were discussing we don't know too much about the Warhammer 40k universe. It's a very expansive tabletop universe. There have been tons of computer real-time strategy games that have come out for this property. But this was something a little out of the ordinary. Even it was developed by Relic, who made a lot of the computer strategy games. They just, I guess, out of the blue came out with this. It's a third-person shooter hack and slash that was published in 2011 by THQ, and that came out for the modern 7th generation PS3, 360, and PC. And yeah, I chose it because I had heard just some good things about it. I thought it would be a little bit of a hidden gem, and kind of found myself pleasantly surprised in some areas and pleasantly disgusted in other areas.
Sure. Yeah, you're going to get my perspective on this, which is, you know, someone who hasn't played a lot of modern games as well. So I'm really interested to hear what, I know you guys have played a lot of third-person shooters like this. So I'm really excited to hear what your take is on it, you know, as opposed to mine. So.
Cool. And just real quickly, our participants were myself, Steven, Rich, Neo, And Addicted just joined recently because I sent him my copy of the game. We're in the middle of the month right now as we record, so he was able to join us because when I was done with the game, I sent my copy to him. So yeah, thanks for everybody who participated and especially wrote some commentary in the forum thread. So the story, again, for the three of us who don't really have a background in this franchise, the story is filled with orcs, and you play as Captain Titus with your sidekicks Sidonius and Leandros, and you are the Space Marines. Sure. And you're like this super elite, ultra sexy macho force that you're a force to be reckoned with.
I've never really thought about or heard about Space Marines before. I remember, and I don't know, you guys played StarCraft on the PC, I'm sure, as most of the world did, correct?
I'm familiar with it. I've actually never played it.
I mean, that's where I'm sorry.
Didn't play it I didn't play it very much. Played it a little bit, but I'm not really too familiar with it.
Yeah, it's just a take on Warcraft, and they had, sort of a Space Marine like units in the game, or kind of your basic units. But I'm not sure if this is sort of drawn off of that or not, or which came first.
I read that the Warhammer tabletop game was created in 1987, so that would be before all the Warcraft and StarCraft.
Cool. So I forget, do you remember, Rich or Steven, why you're called in the beginning of the game? Like, how does a game start? I kind of forgot.
Well, you've been sort of called, haven't you been sort of called in because the planet's sort of been overtaken by orcs? Isn't that the reason you're kind of doing the jump? And you've kind of you've got bases and things like that on this planet. It's sort of a manufacturing planet, and it's been kind of overtaken by like an orc invasion.
Right, and there's actually in the beginning almost like this. It's like something from a sci-fi movie, like Aliens or something, like a computer screen with like status updates that are going on that are telling you what's happening, and we're gonna deploy the Space Marines basically. So you drop in. You kill tons and tons of orcs, and then you meet the Inquisitor, who is Drogon, who is the most thinly veiled and obvious turncoat in the history of video games.
When I first saw that guy, I was like, there's no way this guy's on our side. He's totally a villain. He just looks like a bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the character I mean, he looks like Kano from Mortal Kombat, basically.
Kano with a cape.
Yeah, exactly. So he's, you start out by helping him find the power source, and it turns out that this should be harmful to Titus, but it isn't, and you're kind of under suspicion for the rest of the game. Now, Drogon tricks you into opening this warp gate, which unleashes the demons. You find out he's working for the demons, and this is the point in the story where the enemy types, thank God, started to switch up from orcs, and you killed some demons. You get to kill, some bosses. And then the final boss, and then the ending of the game leaves it up for a sequel because you basically have to stand before your peers, and they want to know why the hell the power source didn't kill you like it should have, basically. Sure. And that's the story in a nutshell. I'm sure we can touch on more of the finer details as we go through it, but I got to be honest, I wasn't in it for the story, and it wasn't really that great. It served its purpose, left the game open for a sequel that will never happen, and it was fine. Again, the Drogon being a bad guy thing was just hilarious because it was so obvious, and then trying to at certain points you can identify with Titus as the main character because it's believable that he doesn't even really know what's going on. So you're kind of in his shoes and
Yeah.
Being under that suspicion. That part of it was believable to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you guys felt about the story in general, but to me it was there. It wasn't good. It wasn't bad. It served the purpose.
Yeah. To me, it's probably a little above average in my opinion. I think if the story was, and again, this is from my perspective, if it was average, I probably wouldn't have finished the game, to be honest. And there's reasons for that, which we'll get into during the gameplay. But to me, it was a longer game than I probably would have liked to have played. I mean, I think it was around 8 hours, right? It's what we decided, which isn't long for a game, but at the same time, there's a lot of repetitiveness and things that just really kind of slowed me down, and I just I feel like the story sort of pushed along. Of course, like you said, I mean, we knew Drogon was a turncoat, and but I think after that part, I think the story started getting a little more interesting, and it really kind of pushed me just to see how it ended. For one, I mean, I was sort of pleased with the ending, but I guess I'm kind of a little saddened that we didn't kind of figure out what the relation of Captain Titus and this power source were. If that makes sense. So,
right.
Yeah, I think the story was the only thing. Well, not the only thing, but one of the only things that made me sort of push to finish this game, because there was a point where I was just like, I just don't even want to play anymore,
So what about you, Stephen? Were you invested in it, or were you just kind of like letting it wash over you like I did?
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you on this one. I was mostly playing it for the gameplay and not really being familiar with the Warhammer universe. I was wondering a lot why there was this big war between the humans and the orcs, and I think there's a loading screen or something that just says that like orcs are the enemies of humanity or something. I guess that's all the reason you need, I guess. But I agree with Rich that it does get a little more interesting after the demon invasion. And I was also wondering why Titus was sort of immune to the warp power thing or whatever. Yeah, it ends on a cliffhanger. I read that there were sequels planned for this game, but then THQ went under. The property was sold off to Sega, and so the sequels never happened. Story's just kind of there for me.
Cool. Well, having the story put aside for the moment, one of the things that got me really into the game in the beginning was the gameplay. Now, what this game plays like, and I posted this in the forum, it's basically God of War meets Gears of War. It's a shooter and a hack and slash game, and at least in the beginning, for the first couple hours of the game, I was loving it. I was blown away by the shooting is well done, and the hordes and hordes of enemies that just come at you in waves. And Rich, you were saying in a text message that you really liked the way the game forces you to use melee, and I thought that was really cool too, because you can sit back and shoot, but there comes a point where there's just dozens of orcs on the screen, and you have to basically give in and start swinging your melee weapon, and it becomes very satisfying. And you can either be strategic or you can just shoot until you have to start swinging, which it gives a nice ebb and flow to the battles and the scenarios. So this is a really cool concept. At least for the first couple hours of the game, it really kept me entertained and satisfied, and I was raving about it in the beginning.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think the game, even throughout, has a nice balance of duck and cover. There are times where you're gonna have to duck and cover and fire from range, and there's other times where stuff is just gonna the floodgates are gonna open and things are just gonna charge at you, and as they're running at you, you can just fire on them, take out as many as you can. That's what I would usually do. Might throw in like a grenade at the beginning of it, and then I would just like hit the run button and just run in and charge and do that bash dash and just like start wailing. I thought that was a lot of fun. I mean, it's a cool game. Graphically, it looks nice. The fighting is a lot of fun. The combos are great. So just that sort of balance, and then forcing you to kind of melee is, I think, a really strong part of the game. Because I know we played Blood on the Sand, and just to kind of compare and contrast, Blood on the Sand was more of a just a kind of duck and cover game where you would just fire, usually from a distance, sometimes, mid-range, but you didn't do a lot of melee in that game, or you weren't forced to, at least, right?
Right. You could, and you would, just go into one of those quick time events if you had to. We talked about how you could use that strategically, but yeah, you never really had to melee in Blood on the Sand, where here you definitely had to at certain times. Now, Steven, like you and I have played a lot more modern games than Rich has. Other than like Blood in the Sand that we've played before for the site, how would you compare the shooting in this game to like a Gears of War or any other major third-person shooters that are out there? Like, how does this hold up?
It's pretty good. I wouldn't say it's among the best I've played. The game felt kind of generic, which, as we said, it kind of borrows heavily from other games, and I think it's no coincidence that you would say this game is like God of War meets Gears of War, because I think I read on the Wikipedia page for this game that, or somewhere, that there were members from the development teams of those two games that worked on this game, so it sort of stands to reason that it would bear some similarities. Like you talked about, the game was you had a lot of fun with it in the early going. I found it kind of generic at first, so it was a little more of a slow burn for me. I actually enjoyed it a lot more as it went on. I wasn't sure how into it I would be in the beginning parts because, like I said, it was kind of generic for me, having played so many games of this, action games like this before. But I think it got more interesting as more new enemy types were introduced, and you gained some pretty interesting weapons. And in the end, I ended up enjoying it quite a bit.
Cool. Yeah, there are some variations in the gameplay where, beyond just the shooting and hack and slash, there are mounted turret sequences, there are some vehicle sequences, and there are the jetpack sequences, which are, in my opinion, the jetpack sequences are really cool, and they were really underutilized because they're so few and far between, and they're so brief that I really wish that the developers had kind of put more of that into the game, because it gave a verticality to the game, and it gave it a sense that you could see your environment. And what the jetpack did was it made you basically be able to do these super jumps, but you can, target areas on the ground and just slam down onto them and stun all the enemies, and that was really cool.
Yeah. And we should say that there's no jumping in the game at all, except for the jetpack.
Right.
So,
I know you had a problem with that, Rich. Well, This is not Super Mario Brothers.
Well, it's, I think it's what I'm used to. I think a lot of, games that I'm used to have like jumping. So I can't remember if Blood on the Sand did or not. I just can't recall. But
no, I'm pretty sure it did.
Not really uncommon for these type of third-person shooters to not be able to jump. You can't jump in Gears of War and a lot of these other games.
Exactly. That's just
and it kind of keeps you on track too, right? It keeps it from being like an open world game as well. Not being able to jump. It really keeps you in sequence and keeps you on the right path, I guess, too. So you're not like jumping over stuff and doing a lot of unnecessary exploring and that sort of thing. So that part of it was nice. I really liked that. I thought the game, for one, does a really good job in sort of guiding you as well, through it. So I never felt like I never got stuck or anything. So that was nice.
Right, it's true. And I did start to have a little bit of like modern game-itis, which is something that Floyd and I and Steven have spoken about a lot on the modern segments, just the homogenization of these modern games. And my wife would kind of laugh at me because I would play the game sometimes for like 10 minutes and just get bored and stop, and she would say like, "You really don't like this game, do you?" And it's like, it's not that, it's just this is another third-person shooter, you know what I mean? Like some of the some of the things weren't really holding my attention. But I guess the other elephant in the room, and Rich, you mentioned how good the graphics were, and I'll totally agree with that. I'm going to also throw out there that the sound is really good, with the exception of one major problem in this
Space
game.
Marines.
Yeah, the orcs, and for the first full half of the game, the only enemy type is orcs of varying sizes. But they just call you out 100 times in every battle, and it's funny because their taunts don't even make sense. Like, some of them, they'll say Space Marines to kill, and then the other half of them are running away because they're scared of you, and it's weird and confusing. But the whole thing about it is just Space Marine, kill the Space Marines, and it was just at certain points I wanted to mute it and maybe listen to music while I was playing, but the effects on the guns and the squishiness of when you're killing and their heads just push like a watermelon, the sound design, other than the voice acting on the orcs, was really good. So it's just a shame. Yeah, exactly. You could just feel it ripping through the flesh. But,
I think Addicted, who you said just started the game, he was mentioning something about the sounds and how annoying it was. I was like, to make it to spice it up a little bit, you should make a drinking game out of it. Every time you hear Space Marine, you have to take a shot. I promise you'll be drunk in the first 5 minutes.
About 20 minutes in. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know, Steven, if you have anything to add to that. Were you as aggravated as I was, or
probably not? I mean, they definitely say it way more than they should, and I could see how that would get really annoying. I guess it's something I'm kind of used to with games. Like, if you play a lot of open world games, like GTA and stuff, a lot of the NPCs, you hear a lot of the same things from just random people on the street, and this game was kind of the same way, in that you just heard them shouting Space Marine all the time. So yeah, I mean, I could definitely see how it would get annoying, but it just didn't really bug me that much. That's
really funny. I'm going to digress here for a second, but I am realizing that I guess it's just a matter of whether it gets under your skin or not, because I remember I really like the Yakuza games, the whole series, and the first game was the only one that had English voice acting when it was localized to the United States. And when you're in the brawls, there's this one guy who says, "You want to get in my face?" And he says it again, like the orc saying Space Marine, the guy says, "You want to get in my face?" like hundreds of times when you're fighting in these battles, like over and over and over again. And it never got boring to me. And I never got annoyed by it. So I could see, hey, if you're playing 40k Space Marine and the orcs don't bother you, then God bless you. Because it really made me want to stop playing and just begging, please give me a different enemy type. So then eventually different enemies come into the game, and you end up fighting what are called chaos demons, and they look kind of like H.R. Giger's aliens, only they're red, basically. And you also fight the Chaos Marines. Now, can anybody? I was kind of lost on what the Chaos Marines actually were. Were they just indoctrinated, infected demon Marines, or is this some other kind of character in the universe?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I totally missed what they were.
With Drogon, I mean, he wasn't we knew he was going to turn on us, but it wasn't that he was necessarily a bad guy. It was just that he was being controlled. And you get a lot of that. I don't know how many of in the games, you get the little floating, little pods that you can hold down the button and you can listen to, different parts of the story. Did you guys do a lot of that? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet Steven
those are
that kind of stuff.
The servo skulls. They were the audio logs in the game. And
yeah.
I'm glad you brought it up. I did want to talk about this some, but most of them were kind of just fluff. It was maybe some Space Marine talking to his family or something. It wasn't really very interesting. But there were some that were from Drogon.
Right.
and
Yeah, there were like 10 from him, and
Yeah.
it kind of amped up the story and kind of added to the story toward the end of the game. I felt like, not like really at the beginning, like you said. At the beginning, it was just just these little like easy sort of small like voice chats, nothing big, nothing that was revealing, right?
Yeah, you find out that Drogon actually had good intentions by creating the psychic scourge. He was trying to save humanity from the orcs, and it kind of talks about how he was experimenting with the warp and these psychic powers or whatever, and he found a way to kill the orcs, basically just using some kind of psychic force to make all their heads explode or something like that. But somehow with his experimentations with the warp, the demons sort of got their hooks in him, and I think they kill him at some point and possess him, and he basically retools the psychic scourge to open these chaos portals or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, I thought that was actually a pretty interesting and important part of the story.
Yeah, and it kind of goes along with what I was saying about how the story got more interesting and sort of pushed me through the game, because those got a little more, I guess, dicier toward the end of the game, a little spicy. So it kind of added to the story a little more. And I guess, my take, getting back to what we were talking about and what Sean had brought up, getting back to the Chaos Marines, I felt that was, these were just guys that had been possessed the same way. I mean, that was my take on it. It was never implicitly stated in the game, but that's how I felt. But they kind of just pop up, and it's kind of odd,
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's kind of why I didn't get it.
Yeah, I think that's right about them being like controlled. I think I remember one part, the Space Marines, the ones you're playing as, refer to them as traitors, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do.
So it makes it kind of sound like maybe they consciously chose to side with the Chaos Demons, but I'm not sure if that's the case. I think they were just being controlled like Drogon was.
Right, and again, it's probably just that gap that we have, not knowing a lot about the Warhammer 40k universe, right? So
yeah,
right, true. There were a couple boss battles in the game. Now there were smaller, I wouldn't call them mini bosses. There were a lot of heavies throughout the game, but the two major boss battles are with War Boss Grimskull and the final boss.
Sure.
How did you guys? Well, let's put the final boss aside for a second. I quite enjoyed the War Boss Grimskull boss battle. There were parts of it that were a little over scripted, but the whole sequence of like what actually is going on was pretty cool. Did you guys enjoy that?
I died a lot there. Obviously,
yeah, I mean, same here.
Being a newcomer to these type of games, I probably died the most there. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I played the game on easy. I didn't play like normal.
No, don't worry, I did too. I'd play everything on easy like most of the time.
But as you would play that, there were different stages in that battle. Where you would hit him enough, and then it would move on to something else. Well, if you got to another stage, once you died, you wouldn't have to restart the entire battle. Steven, you played it on normal, so you would know, like, would you have to restart the entire battle, or did it save like in between those stages?
I don't know. I didn't die on that part.
Man,
whoa, badass.
He kind of just like puts that in there. He just slides that in there, doesn't he? Just to make us feel bad. God. Jeez. Well, I'll tell you why I died so much, to be honest. I mean, you would have to barrel out of the way when he would charge you, because that took a lot off. But those annoying little bomb guys, oh man, those were probably the most annoying enemy in the game. That other than Space Marines, that was the second most annoying sound in this game.
Yeah, the little dog things that run up on you. And if you're looking down the scope, you don't see them a lot of time, and then you just die, and it must have been one of those dogs. That's what I was calling them, but yeah.
Oh, I forgot about those things.
How could you? Oh, I forgot about it because, that was just nothing to me. So.
No, I just I wasn't trying to make it sound like that. But I wasn't. I think I tried to use those to my advantage and use them to take out the enemies. But yeah, they did sneak up on me a few times.
Yeah, that was a nice part of the game, right? Being able to do that. I mean, if a group of enemies were coming in, if you could target one of those, which for me was tough, not playing a lot of these games, and using those, the sticks. But if you could do that, it was a really great advantage in the game.
But just to draw another comparison to Gears of War, I think there's an enemy type that's exactly like that in Gears of War, and it's kind of something I've seen before, I guess, in these kind of games.
Yeah, it just keeps you on your toes.
Yeah.
You know, it's basically a walking grenade that just charges towards you.
Okay, well,
we'll talk about Grim Skull. I did enjoy that boss fight, but it was kind of I feel like it again just kind of a generic boss fight for this type of game. You have the bullet sponge boss, and then all these ads that you have to fight off, and again, it's just something I feel like I've seen 100 times before in these kind of games.
Yeah.
I will say that had one of the most badass moments in the game where you beat him, and then he says, "I'm not finished with you, Space Marine," and Titus says, "Well, I'm finished with you," and shoots him in the face. It's pretty awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. Speaking of like the ads and something we didn't really kind of touch on, the ads are kind of nice in this battle because it lets you refill your energy, and we didn't really talk about when we were talking about gameplay, like how you recover health in this game, and I thought that was it was a neat thing that I've never experienced before. I think Sean you and I were talking about, and you said that this was sort of a system of recovery that you've seen before in games. So.
I actually, what I was saying was I would love to see more of it. So what it is there's no health packs in the game. You do have a regenerating shield, but under that is your actual life bar. And when your life bar depletes, the only way to refill it is to do a finisher, basically, on an orc. And you have to stun them first and then do a finisher, which leaves you vulnerable. So you have to use it strategically. But that's how you regain your health. And what I was saying in the PMs, Rich, was that I really love this system. And the only other game I can think of where I ever saw it was a game called Remember Me, which was very heavily combo based, and you could assign a combo that would replenish your health. But I don't know, Steven, maybe you've seen more of this, but I can't think of, like, can you think of any other games where the health regeneration is tied to the gameplay in such a specific way?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I feel like I have seen this before, but there aren't any game titles that are coming to mind. But I agree with you guys. I really thought it was a cool health recovery system. Make it tied into the gameplay. It forces you to actually keep getting out there and fighting rather than just hiding behind cover and waiting for your health to fully recharge.
Yeah, that's true. It varies, right? Like being able to stun your enemy. You have a button that's keyed to stun. I believe it's triangle. The top button that's keyed to stun, and once you stun the enemy, then you can implement that finish that regenerates your power. But some enemies are harder to break down than others, and every enemy has their own specific pattern, right, as far as doing that.
Right.
So it's kind of
interesting. And
interesting.
some of the heavies you have to do like a super stun, which is a more complicated combo to actually stun them.
Yeah.
So it's simple, but it's not overly simple.
Right.
So it's pretty cool. And yeah, when you're doing that war boss Grimskull boss battle, that's kind of a mechanic that lets you regenerate if you have to, where he kind of like he'll smash a wall down and let a bunch of orcs in to fight with him, and that's basically your health power up if you need it. It's other than just being a distraction and more fodder that's in there, so you can health up if you need to. So one of the things that I thought was a real failure of this game, and again, a larger symptom of the problems with modern games in general, was that the final boss, once again, is a QuickTime event. And I do a facepalm every time this happens. I really can't stand it.
Yeah.
We saw it in Tomb Raider. We've seen it. I've seen it in other games, and it just sucks. Like, I don't know, Rich, as someone who's not super familiar with modern games, I don't know how you felt about the final boss, but
No, it sucked. I mean, yeah, okay. No, I mean, I felt like, from my perspective, and then like I said, for a while it was sort of like, when we first started playing this game, I think I started it before the month started, and I just finished it last night, and it took a lot in me to come back to the game, and finish it up, because it was, for me, a really repetitive, but the story made me want to continue on, and the story pushed me in that direction. But, when you put all that work into something, you put all those hours into something, and then you get to a QTE at the end, it's a complete disappointment. I mean, you've worked so hard, and you're looking for this like grandiose like sort of boss battle, and you're basically pushing 3 buttons in a really again, Steven played it on normal, or maybe even the higher level, knowing him, but
he actually played it blindfolded also.
Yeah, with both hands tied behind my back.
Yeah. If you guys watch that recent blindfolded Super Mario World runs, nothing compared to what Steven did with Space Marine. But but yeah, I'm sure like the button sequence was probably a little more difficult than his. But Sean, you and I played it, and I know it was like 2 buttons. It was like square, square, X. Square X, square, square X. Right. It was just complete crap. It was awful. And then when you get to a certain point, you'd have to like tap O, right?
Yeah.
Or circle.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things where it's like, this isn't a game. This isn't testing my skill in any way. This isn't testing what I've learned throughout playing the game. It's just, can I press a button when the prompt appears on screen? It's Simon Says.
And the prompt was very lenient too. You have to immediately finish it.
Right. Exactly.
Am I playing Space Marine or Parappa the Rapper? I don't know.
Right, exactly. No, this is definitely, boo to them. They did again. Grimskull was not the greatest boss battle of all time, but there was a dynamic to it. There was a back and forth, and yeah, it checkpointed each phase. So if you died, it wasn't like a huge challenge, but at least it was interesting and exciting. And you had to dodge the grenades and dodge the charge attacks. But the quick time at the end is just shameful. I don't know any other way to put it. And it's got to stop. It's got to stop.
Yeah. Maybe that's why they're not making a sequel.
Yeah. Speaking of which, we already kind of touched on it. The ending just kind of ends in a cliffhanger where you basically turn yourself over to the new Inquisitor, I guess it is, or whatever the council is, or whatever, to kind of figure out why, again, you're not being harmed by this energy source. And credits roll, and we're open for a sequel we'll never get.
What'd you guys think about that ending?
I don't know.
Curious. Satisfying? Not satisfying? I know it didn't like kind of complete, but open-ended. But what did you think about it?
It was a little disappointing. I think mainly because we're never going to get a sequel, any kind of closure as to what happens to Titus and why he has this sort of like chaos immunity or whatever it is that he has. But I was pretty interested in finding out what that was all about. I don't think we're ever going to get any closure on that. Yeah.
Well, I guess for me, not knowing that, I'm just finding out now. You guys are telling me that there's not a sequel to this, or not going to be. Just finding that out is very disheartening to me. But I guess in the moment and playing it, not having that information, I was satisfied with the ending. I'm not one of these guys that like something that's sort of all prettied up, with a bow and everyone lives happily ever after. So I was very satisfied with the ending. If I'm just looking at it from the perspective of this game, I thought it really helped sort of develop the characters, especially Leandros, the character, and sort of the whole, I guess sort of, I would call it sort of the whole religious aspect of the game, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. There's all, it's kind of a fantasy sci-fi trope, but the way they talk, the way the characters talk to each other, and you're a heretic, and that's blasphemy and all that stuff. So yeah, it is like kind of quasi-religious.
Yeah, it reminded me of you guys saw Fury Road, right, in the theater, the new Mad Max.
Hell yeah!
That, of course. So that's sort of what it reminded me of, right? This whole like pray to the gears and pray to the machine, right. that whole sort of religious aspect of the game. I thought that was pretty cool, and the fact that Leandros would sort of sell out Captain Titus, at the end was what wasn't really surprising, but it was a nice little twist at the end, I thought.
Yeah, it was cool because you kind of felt like he was pushing that way throughout the whole game, but then you're kind of made to feel like he and Titus have made peace, maybe like 2/3 of the way through the game. So when he does at the end, he kind of sells you out. It was cool, and Rich, I also kind of liked the ending, even though the final boss left a bad taste in my mouth. The ending cutscene was cool because, like I said earlier, I liked Titus as the main character, and I felt he was identifiable. Even though this is really like cookie cutter dude bro, like latently homoerotic, like super macho male, main characters. I liked Titus, and I liked his story, and I liked that he was ready to face the music, not only because of the political, religious situation going on, but because he wants to know what's going on with himself. Yeah. So, yeah, I thought it was good, and it's just, again, a shame that it won't be like wrapped up to see what happens to him.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. These Ultramarines are interesting characters in themselves, right? Because you've got these other. It seems like you've got this military, but when the Space Marines come, it's like they're sort of godly in a way. I mean, the people like in the bunkers and stuff when they come through, they call them like my lord and things like that. So there's something like above and beyond as far as military wise. They have sort of a almost like a deity, when they step onto the soil. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, they're like Navy SEALs, only like super Navy SEALs.
Some religious, with the sort of religious context, people worship. So it's interesting. I was curious how you guys thought about the scene with the character, and then the scene with Sidonus as well. He was the other Space Marine. There were 3 of you, and these guys, were sort of your backup. He, spoiler of course, he meets a pretty uncomfortable demise, but he seems like a very loyal character to Titus, and I really liked his character a lot.
Okay, yeah, he was like pretty like your vanilla sidekick, and more loyal to you. I don't have much of a opinion on him. Maybe Steven does.
No, I'm kind of with you on that. I wasn't really too surprised when he died, and didn't really have too much emotion over it. It just kind of was what it was for me.
Cry or anything.
I wasn't saying you did. Well, you apparently were moved in some way.
Sure.
You wanted to bring it up.
I didn't see it coming. All right.
Well, before we wrap everything up, I just wanted to ask you guys, like, what were some of your favorite weapons in the game? And if you don't know them by name, that's fine, because quite frankly, I don't remember some of their names exactly. But I really liked that one launcher that shot the like blue sticky granades that you could shoot a bunch of them and then detonate them.
I couldn't figure out how to detonate
on
them.
Command.
I was just shooting them worthlessly. Yeah.
Oh, no, you got to shoot them, and then I think it was R2 makes them detonate. So you could shoot a bunch of them, and you could kind of wait until the enemy that has it stuck to it, is in a good spot to blow them up. I really like that weapon.
I would have liked that weapon.
Aw.
Yeah, it was a cool weapon. I didn't use it that much. I think with explosive weapons, I'm always worried about splash damage, hitting myself with them. So I tend to not use them that often.
Right.
But, I think the 2 I used most often were I think there was one called the Melta gun, which is sort of like a shotgun. It would just like kill most enemies in one shot.
Yeah.
It was really, really good.
Well, is that just like, it was like a really tight like laser, and it would just like, it would go through, like you can even shoot it through walls. It would just go right through it, wherever they were.
No, I think that was like the sniper rifle one, which
that
was the other one I used a lot. And yeah, you could kill those big Chaos Marine guys in one hit if you got a clean shot on the head.
Mm-hmm.
So I kept that one around all the time. The Melta gun was more of a close range shotgun type weapon. It shot like a big fire blast.
Mm-hmm.
It would kill most enemies in one hit.
Yeah. I mainly use sort of the chain gun weapons too, which was my if you hit the directional pad for me, it was the ones to the right. I use those quite a bit, just to kind of mow down, especially incoming. A lot of times that would be a pretty good weapon. It would just hold it down and just go to town, with that. As far as the I think I liked how the game set up the melee weapons a lot. Like you had the sword, which was of course the quickest, but did the least amount of damage. You had the axe, which was a little bit slower but did more damage, and then you had this this sort of like this huge like Warhammer. And the interesting thing about that was it was slower, but it did amazing damage, but it limited you in the number of weapons that you could use, like your other weapons, your ranged weapons, right?
Yeah, it's true. And for that reason, I almost never used the hammer. Sure. I stuck mostly with the axe for pretty much most of the game.
And the hammer sort of messed up your health regen as well, because you would hit so hard that it was a lot harder to get a stun in with that, I thought, anyway.
Yeah, you'd be killing dudes that you need to get health from. That's true.
So I didn't use that a lot either. So
And to kind of go back to the whole jetpack thing, a lot of times when you use the jetpack, it made you use the hammer too, so you couldn't use your other two heavier weapons. You were locked to your pistol and your little submachine gun. Mm-hmm. And even though the jetpack sections were pretty cool, I really didn't like being not able to use those weapons. So I kind of dreaded the jetpack parts for that reason.
Sure.
Yeah, I think they make you use a hammer because that's tied to that targeted slam mechanic, which wouldn't really make sense if you're using just the sword or the axe. It's much cooler with the hammer. So yeah, they kind of force you into it during those segments. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys have anything else to add before we wrap it up, but I just want to say this game was kind of a mixed experience for me, but I would say overall I would recommend it to anybody who likes modern action games and wants to try something a little bit different that kind of blends the shooting and the hack and slash in a really cool way. And it's not long. It's very common. It's easy to find. Rich actually bought a couple copies and gave them away to
And I have a copy for sale right now on my for trade thread at RFGeneration.com. Single banana. Right there in the forums. $4. Good deal.
Nice.
Good deal.
So yeah, I'd say it's definitely worth $4. I wouldn't run out into, to add it to my collection if I was kind of sick of these types of games. Sure. But if you love them and you want something different, this is definitely a good high production value experience. So.
Yeah, I think and just kind of getting back to the game, and you were saying if there's anything else that we maybe wanted to discuss, we didn't mention anything about the Fury meter, and I thought that was a pretty important and cool part of the game.
That's something that to me is almost kind of tied in. That's from the God of War kind of thing. It has the same exact mechanic in it. You fight until you fill up a meter, and then you go into like a rage mode. But yeah, it's worth mentioning that this game
Blood on the
has
Sand
that.
had something similar to where you could slow down. Everything slowed down.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I actually used, I don't know about you guys, but I used that more for when I was about to die than anything else, because it helps you you automatically regenerate health when you're doing that. So I almost use it as a safety net most of the time, more than like, I'm going to use this for power to mow down guys. I just kind of left it in reserve until I was in trouble and then activated it.
It was better for melee than it was for range. I didn't think it really gave you any sort of advantage to use it ranged. It slowed down everything and allowed you to fire, but I didn't feel like I felt like in melee it made you do a lot more damage, but I felt like just firing, there wasn't any sort of distinct advantage in that. I don't know, maybe just me.
I don't think I ever even tried it with firing, so I can't really speak on its usefulness there. It probably would have been smarter to use it when I was in trouble. I think I mainly saved it for when I was swarmed by enemies, or particularly some of the more challenging enemies. I think I used it some when those big Space Marine guys with the hammers were coming at you. Those guys are pretty difficult, and I think I would maybe save it for things like that.
Right. Yeah. And I guess the only thing, the last thing I sort of wanted to maybe touch on, we just kind of briefly talked about the sort of environments and locations. And as Sean had mentioned, I really liked the game. I thought it was beautiful. I mean, it's a really beautiful game. There's not a lot of variety. I think Steven had mentioned there's really only, like, you're inside of areas or you're outside, on the planet, and there's not a lot of variety. But there was one sequence that sort of kept me in the game, and something I liked a lot, and that was the part where you enter the base. I think it's when you're on your way to get the power source, and you have to fight the defense systems. I just thought that was kind of a neat addition to the game and sort of broke it up a little bit for me.
Yeah, that was a good change of pace. I actually enjoyed that part.
Yeah, it was cool. I think I didn't like it at the time, but in retrospect, it really did. It was something different, and it was not just a broken down, basically disaster area. You were actually in a place that was kind of still intact for one of the rare times in the game. So yeah, that was neat.
It fit right into the plot pretty nicely too. So it didn't, to me, it just, it didn't seem unimportant or tagged on. So I thought that was kind of nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Steven, do you have any final thoughts or anything else that we didn't touch on that you'd like to talk about?
I guess I didn't really have high expectations going into this game. So when I first started, and it felt kind of generic, it wasn't really changing my opinion a whole lot. But I think at some point, it wasn't too far into the game, I really started to come around and like this game, and had a lot of fun with it, and it was a real pleasant surprise. And like you said, I would recommend it to somebody looking for just sort of a by the numbers action game. Not really, it's not really too much that sets it apart from other games, I think, but it's still a lot of fun, I think.
That's cool. I just got to say, it's really gratifying to hear that you guys both really enjoyed the game, and most people do. I mean, the game got pretty favorable reviews from everybody. It's a above average, well liked game, and I'm glad to hear that you guys liked it, because there were times when I was really hating on it and quite not enjoying the experience. But overall, again, in retrospect, I think it's a really good game, and I would recommend it.
I think you and Rich were kind of sending some messages back and forth that I saw, and I was kind of getting a feel that by the end of the game you had your problems with it, and this was before I even started playing the game, so I think that kind of colored my expectations and kind of lowered my expectations some more, and which really just probably actually helped me enjoy the game more when it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would.
Awesome.
So yeah,
cool.
So from now on, just say every game sucks, and I'll just I'll enjoy it more.
How would you?
Well, that's.
I'm sorry. I know one of our members said that the thing that they would probably like most for us to do at the end of our discussions is sort of give the game a rating. So I was just kind of interested in how you guys would rate this game, sort of out of 10.
I don't know. Those kind of things are always hard to do. I guess I would give it like a 6 or a 7.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'd probably go 7.5.
Yeah. I think between 6 and 7 is probably where I'm at. Just not having a lot of experience playing it, but it's good to see that we sort of fall into the same area with that. So cool.
Cool. Well, that's Warhammer 40k Space Marine. Steven, you want to give us a little preview of what our modern title is for next month?
Yeah, so in August we're playing Spec Ops: The Line for PS3, Xbox 360, and PC. It's on the surface a modern military third-person shooter with some kind of light squad-based mechanics. Underneath that, it's got a very engaging story, a lot of twists and turns you might not expect. So I hope you get a lot of people to check that one out.
Very cool.
I was looking into it. It's around, I think it's around a $10 game, so it's not going to blow anyone's budget.
I believe it was free on PlayStation Plus a while back too.
Okay.
So
Sure,
awesome. Some
Yeah,
people have that.
That's how I played it first, and that's how I'll play it again. I'll just download that again. And Rich, I would recommend it to you. I think you would like it if you can find a cheap copy and you have the time play with us. But for our listeners and for our members, please log on to rfgeneration.com and sign up to play Spec Ops: The Line with us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for slumming with us in the modern dumpster with with games that aren't NES titles. And that'll be all for another episode of the PlayCast. Thank you for listening, and a very special thank you to everyone who joined the playthroughs, and super high fives to our guests on the podcast this month. Remember to visit rfgeneration.com to participate in our playthroughs, discuss the games, or leave feedback about this podcast. Join us next month in our playthroughs for August, when Floyd will be hosting a game that was chosen by our RF Generation members who rocked the vote and chose Little Nemo the Dream Master for the NES. If you're up for something a little more mature and disturbing, Steven will be hosting Spec Ops: The Line for PS3, Xbox 360, and PC. Thank you as always for listening, and we'll see you next time on the RF Generation PlayCast.